For you, all the interviews and everything. There tons of social media stuff that we'll have tonight with the videos and everything that we'll be posting with all the interviews of every single player is available. And you can go up and talk to them, and we'll play all those interviews throughout this week that we get as well, and see who else we're going to talk to this week. Different people around the NFL, different people with the Chiefs. We'll talk with Clark Hunt at some point this week, and Mark Donovan and whoever else. But all those media availabilities, tomorrow at 11 o'clock, we'll hear from the Kansas City Chiefs, and then Wednesday and Thursday, the press conferences will be during a new day with SSJ on Thursday, or Wednesday, Thursday, nothing on Friday. So we'll have you covered right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Our coverage from Radio Row, presented by Xfinity, Shamrock Roofing and Construction, The Big Biscuit, and Subaru of Olathe. Like we said, Jack Johnson hanging out with us here until about 11:30 or so. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer. We'll hang out with Field Yates coming up at noon. We get a breakdown of the game with Field Yates. He was at the Senior Bowl. Get his thoughts on things that he saw from the Senior Bowl. One of the more amazing stories in football and life and tragedy and triumph, and trying to sort of live through other people in the Senior Bowl. So we've got that. That's easily my best from the weekend, but we'll talk with Field Yates about that coming up at noon because he was there at the Senior Bowl. I don't know that anybody watched the Pro Bowl games yesterday. I forgot that it was on, just as I forgot the Pro Bowl games on Thursday were on. I forgot the flag football game was on yesterday. And that is one part, Jack, that has been interesting in this 6-year run of going to 5 Super Bowls, is that there is just zero interest in the Pro Bowl. Like I know there's hardly ever interest in the Pro Bowl, really, for me. I just don't care anymore. Like, I'll watch it. It's in the background and everything. But there's just zero, because typically when you're watching it, you're like, well, are the Chiefs there? I think the last time I paid attention to the Pro Bowl was the 2021 season when Kelsey and Mahomes were actually there and, hanging out. It's like, oh, I'll watch a little bit of the Pro Bowl and the Pro Bowl games and things like that. But just – it's amazing that in these last 6 years, 5 of them, the Chiefs players aren't even eligible to participate in the Pro Bowl, and it's just such out of sight, out of mind for me. Forgot Thursday night was the Pro Bowl games. We joked about that on Friday, and completely forgot that the flag football game was yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I had no interest in it either. I mean, I think there's the two major leagues I think that struggle the most with their All-Star game or the Pro Bowl has to be the NBA and the Pro Bowl, of course, because I just think the players treat it more so as a getaway. Hey, we are here to showcase that we're an All-Star, that it was deserved. But they're out there. They're probably tired from the season. NBA is a little bit different because it's middle of the season. Pro Bowl's at the end of the year for a lot of these guys. So they just want to treat it as a vacation. They don't want to go out there, and they already have an extra game on the schedule, right, in the regular season. So they don't want to go out there and continue to hit other guys. They want to be relaxed. They want to enjoy their time off. But for the fan consumption, it's not really appealing to you. When you're watching the NBA All-Star Game, yeah, it's awesome to see LeBron out there and Giannis out there and Luka out there. but they're not going to play any defense. Like, even more so than they don't do in the regular season. They're going to put up 190 points, and it's just, it's like a pickup game, but a lazy pickup game. The Pro Bowl, now that we've shifted to flag football, why would that be entertaining to me whatsoever? I mean, that's even less than what it was.
I was sold on, okay, if we play flag football, these guys are going to really bust it and work, and it's not going to be the, they don't want to really hit each other, so, you see sort of the half speed because of the contact. You don't want to get injured, but, like, the flag football is going to be really interesting. And I saw the highlights of it last night, which is what reminded me that the flag football game took place yesterday, and I'm like, all these guys are jogging. They're all still jogging. Now it's a flag football game with them jogging. It's not even real football. They don't have pads on jogging around. They're just playing flag football jogging around. It became even less interesting to me with the flag football now that they're like, if it was really like, these guys are busting it and you're getting, the best on the best and they're going full speed and it's like a 7-on-7 or whatever. Like maybe it's more interesting, but yeah. But it's great because like I completely forgot the whole thing was taking place completely because we're just so engulfed in Chiefs and and the NFL and Super Bowl and this incredible run that they are on to go for a three-peat and a Chiefs-peat, a threed-peat, and see what they can do against the Eagles. That line still has not moved. It's still Chiefs point and a half favorite. Still 48.5 is the total. That thing's been stagnant for about 6 or 7 days. Well, about 5 days. Let's say about 5. I think last Monday it dropped to 47.5, and then it went back up to 48.5, and I think it's been there since then. So, like, since Tuesday or Wednesday, it's just been 1.5 and 48.5. We'll see what that starts doing later on this week as it gets closer and closer, but we'll have a lot of NFL conversation. We'll get into some of the breakdowns of, this week and what the Chiefs' strengths and the Eagles' strengths. And one of the things that we can get into and talk about at some point this week is just sort of looking at these teams, how they got here, and if there's anything to take away from, how these particular teams play, what they look like, how they've been constructed, and even looking at the AFC and NFC championship games. If you want to throw those two teams in there and talk about that as well, we can get into some of those things. But let's start with college basketball because there'll be so much NFL this week, and a big one tonight with Kansas and Iowa State, and it becomes even bigger with the weekend that was in two teams losing by – Iowa State lost by a much wider margin, and we'll talk K-State here in just a little bit, and KU blowing that lead. In fact, you know what? To heck with that. Let's start with K-State. I know KU blowing the lead the last couple of Saturdays has been the conversation, but let's start with K-State because this is a team that pulled off something that literally has never happened in college basketball before. They are the first ever team with a losing record to go on the road to beat a top 5 team by more than 15 points. It's never happened in the history of college basketball, and K-State did that this weekend. And K-State had a 15-game road losing streak. Iowa State had a 29-game home winning streak. This was probably as surprising of a result as we've seen in college basketball because of the record and how the teams had been playing and where the teams were. K-State playing much better the last couple of times out. Getting a big win against West Virginia, taking care of Oklahoma State, doing just simply taking care of business. Do what you need to do. They beat them by a pretty decent margin, but they did what they needed to do and win the game. And going to Iowa State, we kind of discussed last week, okay, what can K-State do? What does this really mean? Is this too little too late? It's just sort of salvaging the season. And can they split with Iowa State? If you look at the rest of the season, they got KU at home. And can they, Iowa State they got twice. Like, what if they were to win out? Can they make the tournament without having to win the Big 12 tournament? Yeah, but, you got some tough games, and they've played pretty decent the last couple of games. But what are they going to do at Iowa State? And they go into Iowa State, and it was an early sort of punch that Iowa State threw. They threw a couple of quick haymakers to go up, 13, 15-4, whatever that was. And K-State then responds, battles back, and eventually in the second half just lays a beat down on Iowa State. And Jerome Tang, whether it's joking about Scott Drew, going into the locker room, we all had our issues with that. Scott Drew going into the K-State locker room after the Baylor game. They have certainly turned it around since then and played much better basketball. Coleman Hawkins is playing like a guy that would be a $2 million NIL player in these last 3 games, averaging 14 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, almost 2 blocks per game, 3 steals per game, and only a turnover. Like, the guy's got a 4-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio as a big man. The basketball's playing through him. Housen is playing like the guy that they thought they were getting, a shooter to knock down big shots, 7 of 10 from behind the arc the last 2 games, scored 33 points. Doug McDaniel doing the thing that they were hoping he would do these last couple of games, 5-11 from behind the arc, 30 points. Like, earlier this year, it felt like it was imperative that Coleman Hawkins, Doug McDaniel, and Gasson had to play high-level basketball for K-State to have a chance to win. And, yes, those guys, Gasson isn't, dropping 25 points or anything, but Housen stepping up and doing what he is there to do, which is knock down threes. McDaniel to score. He's not exactly taking care of the basketball. 5, assists, 5 turnovers. But Coleman Hawkins was brought in to be a guy that you could play through. That wasn't just going to be a scorer or like some defensive stalwart. It was somebody that you could play through, wanted to be an all-around basketball player, not a scorer, not a shot maker, just simply a basketball player. And what I'm seeing right now, Jack, is a team that's finding their place, that's finding their roles. It still feels too little, too late, because you've got to keep this up, and it is hard for any college team to be able to play at this level consistently. But what they've done is at least lit a spark on what the season can be this year, and showing that if they win enough games down the stretch and win a couple of games in the Big 12 tournament, if they're playing like this, they've at least given themselves a shot and an argument to say, hey, we may be able to make the NCAA tournament. Whereas, a couple, 3 games ago, that was just out of the question. We weren't even talking about them. And I said we're not going to talk about K-State as long as they keep losing. Like, we're talking about KU and MU, just as last year we stopped talking about Mizzou. We just stopped talking about them, early on, like 6-7 games into the SEC play. It's like, we're not talking about them until they win. And then the only time we talked about them is, can they go 8? Are they going to go 0-18 in conference play? And they ended up doing that. But, this K-State team, I don't know really how to feel on this team specifically, because there's not that much season left. There's still enough season left. But it's enough season left if you almost play perfect basketball down the stretch.
You have to give credit where credit's due. I mean, when they were 7-11, they blew another game on the road in Waco. They had every right, to be honest with you, to mail it in at that point. I mean, this was a team that severely underachieved. They'd blown multiple games. They had that long road losing streak, but clearly Jerome Tang, and maybe with the help of Scott Drew a little bit, there was a fire that was ignited, because then they followed up by blowing out West Virginia, blowing out Oklahoma State, and blowing out Iowa State. The problem is, as you brought up, Jason, is that there isn't much season left, and even though we would like to say, hey, they found something, they are blowing out really good teams on the road, they are blowing out good teams at home. The Big 12 just feels really unpredictable, right? Every time you feel like you've got your finger on somebody and think, this is the team that's going to win it, this is the team that's going on the tear. I mean, think about it. Iowa State was that team. Now they've lost back-to-back games and are in danger of losing 3 in a row tonight in Lawrence against Kansas. Houston looked unbeatable. Then they lose at home against Texas Tech. So even when you think you are playing your best basketball and, you're looking on paper, that's a winnable game. That's a winnable game. If we beat Iowa State by 20 on the road, we can beat anybody on the road. It feels like it's just a game-by-game basis. Sometimes you come out and you're flat. Sometimes you get, a big head, and you have a team that comes in that's a little bit more scrappy, wants it more, and they can take that game from you. But in reality, this is kind of the K-State team we all expected. When it all comes together, when they can play through their best players, they're talented enough to go into Ames and basically dog walk that team for 40 straight minutes. That's right. What it was. It was an absolute beatdown. And I don't think you could look at K-State or Iowa State, and say, well, they weren't prepared, they weren't ready. I mean, I think you can use that as an argument. That's also a rivalry game between these two teams. So I don't think a team as well coached as Iowa State is going, don't worry about this team. They're 9-11, whatever they were. They were coming off back-to-back blowout wins. So you had to have some level of respect. And I think K-State just looked like the more talented team in that game. They're not the more talented team overall, but I'm very impressed with the way they've responded, certainly considering the landscape of college basketball, where some kids out there that are making a lot of money, they look at their record and go, I'm not playing in March Madness. I don't really care about the state of this program next year. I'm not going to be here. And you mentally check out. But that's not what has happened with this group. The problem, though, for this team is that start to the season, that non-conference slate, some of the losses they have, Wichita State, Oklahoma State. They had that one Thanksgiving tournament where they had basically the most talented team by far and away in the field, and they lost 1 or 2 games in that tournament. You look back at that and you go, man, if you were playing 70% of what you are right now, you're sitting pretty. But I don't think they can lose 2 more regular season games, because if you lose 2 more regular season games, and even with a deep run in the Big 12 tournament, if you don't win it, I don't know how you get in with 14 losses in a Power 5 conference.
So they can get to 20 wins if they win out. If they lose 2, they're sitting at 18 wins, depending on what the losses are. The thing that's going for K-State is that the 3 toughest teams they have remaining are all at home. KU, Arizona, Iowa State, they're all at home. They play Arizona once, and that's a home game. They play Iowa State, obviously, one more. That's the end of the season on March 8th. That is at home. They play Kansas one more time. We know about that. That's coming up on Saturday, day before the Super Bowl. That's, in Manhattan. That's a home game. They go to BYU. That's probably the toughest road game remaining. But, heading to Utah, Arizona State this weekend, that's or tomorrow night, I should say, Arizona State tomorrow night. That's going to be an interesting one, because I don't think that you're going to sneak up on Arizona State, and Arizona State's coming off. I do wonder how what Arizona State's going to look like tomorrow night, because they're coming off that Arizona, rivalry loss where that whole end of the game situation took place with Tommy Lloyd and Bobby Hurley, and Bobby Hurley taking his team off the floor with still like 30 seconds left. All of his coaches he told to leave. They started leaving the floor, but there was still a half second left on the game clock, so they had to throw it in. And then, Tommy Lloyd is like thinking he's going to go shake hands with the coach, and Bobby Hurley just turns around and walks, and Tommy Lloyd's like, what? Okay, me? They didn't show what Bobby Hurley did. I don't know if the Bobby Hurley, gave him flip him off or something. The Hurleys seem to be very calm, cool, collected, really even-keeled when they're going through these games. But I don't know what Arizona State's going to be like between the ears getting ready for that one tomorrow night. So certainly that becomes a winnable game. And if you're winning 4 in a row by going to Arizona State and West Virginia, or going to Arizona State and Iowa State, winning the last couple of games and winning at home against West Virginia, Oklahoma State before that, and getting ready for Kansas at home, you're riding high, and we'll see what Kansas is doing with their game coming up tonight against Iowa State. They might be on an odd streak of going 1-3 with, blowing a game against Houston, blowing a game against Baylor, and then if they were to lose tonight, that would, to me, I mean, I don't know how, we'll be able to paint the picture. We'll see what the dash means. I don't know what the final score will be, but the dash is ultimately what will dictate that thing. Like losing by 11 at Baylor, you're like, okay, how'd they play? Well, losing by 11 while leading by 21 at some point, yeah, that's disaster. I don't know what is more improbable, leading by 6 with 18 seconds to go and heading to the free throw line for 2, or having a 21-point lead and losing in general, or giving up 60 points in the second half for KU. So that game on Saturday is going to be fascinating, depending on what happens the next 2 nights, KU, Iowa State, and then K-State and Arizona State. We'll take a time out. I want to get into KU and MU, and then we'll get into some football stuff around here with the NFL. We'll also talk a little baseball with the report that came out that the Royals were in on Santander. That almost bothers me more. Like, it's nice that they were in on him, but it's sort of like it's a tease, man. Oh my God. So we'll take a time out. We'll come back. We'll continue hanging out here at Media Row, Radio Row. They're calling it Media Row this year. So apparently, anybody, it's not just radio. We got TV. Everything's on TV now. Yes, so we're at Radio Row here in New Orleans, getting ready for Super Bowl 59, Chiefs and Eagles. We've got 3.5 more hours of show left to go. We'll talk some more college basketball on the other side. Mizzou taking care of business again. A couple of big SEC road wins for them at Florida, and then going into top 15, Mississippi State taking care of business, sitting all alone in third place in the SEC. And we'll talk about KU and what's going on with them on the other side of the break. More Zone next. New Orleans. Our coverage from Radio Row presented by the CW Farm and Ranch Venue, Adams Toyota Lease Summit, Made in KC, and McGregor's Butcher and Bistro. Appreciate our sponsors as they help us present our coverage here at Radio Row. Jack, I'll go to you for this one. What's going on with the Kansas Jayhawks right now?
Yeah, I mean, what a frustrating, let's just call it conference play for Kansas, even though they've got a winning record in it. I think it's because this team is so much more capable than what they're showing. And, I also want to preface it and say that, if you are 14-5, 15-5, whatever they are, 15-6, like, the sky's not falling. You don't want to say this is an awful team. They're going to make the tournament. They're going to be a top 5 seed. So you can't really complain about that. But I also understand the overall frustration considering the experience they have, the talent they have, and the way the Big 12 is this year. The Big 12 is not as good as it was last year. And honestly, the schedule falls in favor of Kansas a little bit. And what at least the people I've talked about, I think the really angering part about this team is that the way they're losing some of these games, the Houston one, the Baylor one on Saturday, it's one thing to do that when you're starting 4 freshmen. It's a completely different thing to be doing that when you have 2-3 grad transfer kids out there. You've got a 5th-year senior, a 6th-year senior, and the way they're blowing some of these games is just – it's something you've never really seen in the Bill Self era. And I believe there was a stat I saw on Saturday that they had never lost a game leading by 15 or more under Bill Self, and now they've got one. And this comes a week after having one of the most improbable meltdowns we've seen in college basketball history. So, yeah, I mean, going into tonight, it's a Big Monday game, and Bill Self, once again, another undefeated record on Big Monday at Allen Fieldhouse. Like, I don't know where your confidence level can be at. It's been proven this year that Allen Fieldhouse is not the Allen Fieldhouse it's been. You've now seen West Virginia go in there and win. You've seen Houston go in there and win. You saw UCF last week nearly pull off a stunning upset. I just don't know if there's a lot of confidence or juice going into a game like this. But I think, and I know we'll get into this, I think there is one huge reason as to why this team hasn't taken off, but I guess I'll swing it back to you with your thoughts on another collapse, a meltdown by this Kansas team.
It's something that I just have never seen from a Bill Self team. Like, I just against Houston was improbable enough. And, that loss, you're like, you know what, that was, that's a crazy flurry finish, right? We see upsets in the NCAA tournament where a team is leading and all of a sudden another team just hits a couple quick threes. You're like, what in the hell just happened? Wichita, sorry for Shocker fans, but, Wichita State in 2013 was up by 12 against Louisville. And they hit 3 straight threes in the national semifinal. All of a sudden, it's a 3-point game. It was that quick. It was 3 possessions. Wichita State was controlling that game. And then boom, boom, boom. Like, sometimes those things just happen in basketball. Shocking that you end up losing a game that you were controlling and all you had to do was hit a free throw or get a stop or not turn the ball over. That was surprising. This one felt more like a real sort of, that was a quick haymaker. This was just getting boxed, and it's like you aren't there right now. You're not there in the fight, playing the way or fighting the way that you should, because you took the big lead, then you lost the lead, then you went back up by 10. I think going back up by 10 and then ending up getting outscored by 21 after that in the last 10 minutes – this is a team that for some reason, Jack, when something is going wrong, certainly in this game, when something was going wrong, they couldn't really stop it. And when they did, then it started going wrong again, and it was like, okay, you let go of the rope. Whether it's Hunter Dickinson fouling out, and it can't be that because VJ Edgecombe missed the last 14 minutes of the game. Roach still hasn't played in a month or whatever, so Love hasn't played in a while. So it's not like Baylor was at full strength, and KU was missing a couple players. But it's incredibly surprising. So you've got KU blowing that lead. And also John Rothstein said, Bill Self has never had back-to-back years where he didn't have at least a share of the Big 12. And we know that because he went, 1,000 years straight by having winning or having a share of the Big 12 regular season. And they're 3 games back of a team that they've already lost to in Houston. So I don't know what was more surprising. I think the Baylor one was more surprising. Houston was sort of shocking. Baylor was like, hold on. This is a little bit more real than Houston pulling off a stunning, 18 seconds.
I have a question for both of you guys. I'm going to toss this kind of in here that relates to this. Is this the residue or kind of starting to show the NIL transfer portal era on a self team where he's trying to put together a bunch of guys that have just transferred in or just gotten a role on the team, and it's not gelling right now, and there's a chance it could later in the year, but because there's so many fresh faces that aren't used to playing with each other in a specific system that he runs, is that maybe what's causing all these issues and all these late game meltdowns, I guess?
You know, I read this story the other day. I'm not sure if either of you guys caught it, but I think it was from Shreyas, who covers KU basketball, does a phenomenal job. He had talked with, I think, Dan Hurley, and he was going over the NIL process and assembling a team, the challenges of going back-to-back, having a three-peat. And he said, you're going to have, if you win a lot, you're going to have those top players come to you, but it's not always about assembling the best players. It's about assembling your guys, the guys that best fit your system. And I think with this Kansas team, simply put, I think a lot of those transfers that came in just don't fit the style in which Bill Self coaches. If that was the case, A.J. Storr wouldn't be having 6 minutes total in a game like this. Rylan Griffin wouldn't be playing only half the game. This is a guy that started on a Final Four team last year. And I do think there is some, tough reality, tough conversations that need to be had about how the rotation is handled, right? I think Bill Self's guys are DeJuan Harris. I think it's KJ Adams. I think it's Zeke Mayo. And I think it's Hunter Dickinson. I think everybody else, it's like trying to put a puzzle piece that doesn't fit. And, Flory Badunga, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I believe he's KU's best player. I think his ceiling is the highest. I think he's the biggest X factor for this team. And he got 15 minutes in the game on Saturday, and KJ Adams got 30. And I don't think that's going to change. We now have got the answer where when push comes to shove, I think Bill Self would rather have his guys out there, even if it doesn't really make sense rotation-wise, and lose with that group than maybe trying to throw a lineup at the wall or try to give extra minutes. I mean, I could not imagine after the Houston game, the most physical team in the country, where Flory Badunga puts up 19 points, has 13 boards, 5 blocks, and then you think, man, when KJ Adams comes back, it'll be great to rotate those two. Flory Badunga got 1 shot on Saturday, and KJ Adams had, I think, the same amount of points, or if not 2 more, in 15 more minutes of action. It's not to completely come down on KJ Adams. I just think that last year, the year before that, Kansas had largely the same group, minus Hunter Dickinson, the first year that KJ Adams started. And I think this lineup, this rotation, it doesn't really fit well with most Bill Self teams. And I think that's why you're seeing these blown games, this inability to be consistent. It's been really hard for them to find that perfect match all year long.
Yeah, I think this is where, just because you grab talent doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. Now, there is always going to be a benefit of the doubt from me given to Bill Self figuring out how to make it work. Right? I mean, but we've seen teams, like, I think there's a more realistic chance that we will see teams do what Missouri's doing in you make the tournament, win a game, lose to Princeton when the bracket opens up for you, and the next year you got a couple of injuries and you go 0-18 in conference play, and it's a disaster. And you turn around this year, those at least one of the injured guys returns. The other guy goes to the Big Ten and is one of the better scorers there. And you bring in a couple of other guys, and you get it to that you get those guys to play their roles and understand their roles. And they may not be the most talented. Like Perkins is not an incredibly talented point guard. But I think for the most part, he understands his role. For the most part, I think sometimes he doesn't. But like Mark Mitchell is not a guy that they even had, like early on was a guy that they had to rely upon. It was Mark Mitchell, it was Tamar Bates. But now those guys have been able to take more of back seats if need be when other guys are playing really well. Caleb Grill is coming on. Anthony Robinson doing what he does. Like you're seeing, Gray from time to time. But those guys are like, it feels like a puzzle piece that fits this year for Dennis Gates, and it doesn't feel like that with Bill Self right now. It feels very scattered and trying to find, or can I mold this guy to go into a puzzle? It's not a puzzle piece that I have that fits. I'm sort of trying to cut and maneuver around the edges to fit into a puzzle piece, and it's just not working right now. Will it work at the end of the season? We'll see, but right now it just doesn't feel like it's a cohesive group where K-State is becoming a cohesive group. Missouri's been that for what it feels like a month now, that it's like, wow, these pieces just sort of fit together, and KU isn't. And that will go into the NIL era because it's like, hey, go get this guy, go get that, you got money. Okay, but you got money, you still have to recruit. And we talked about this with Coleman Hawkins at the beginning of the year. It's like, well, KU paid him $2 million. Well, did they pay him $2 million because that was the guy they went out and said, we want to grab that guy? Or did they pay him $2 million because it became a bidding war because he was all that was left at that time? And I think it's closer to the latter than it is the former. So then you've got that. Now, how do you make it work around that? Okay, what does Coleman Hawkins do well? What does this guy do well? Okay, they're figuring it out. And so when you're out on the NIL, you can look at 5 or 6 different players that may fit. Can you get some of those? What are the NIL? And then how do they actually fit to their roles? Like A.J. Storr, this guy's going to come in and be a scorer. Well, I mean, he was a volume scorer at Wisconsin. Like, he comes into KU, he's not going to get the shots. Like, I'm guessing they were pretty upfront, but even if Bill Self-Jack is like, hey, AJ, you come in here, like, you're going to be a part of this system. There'll be nights where you drop 20, 25. There'll be nights where you, score 6 or 7 or 8, but hey, we're going to go and win a national championship this year. Are you good with that? Yeah, let's do it, man. And then you get there and it's like, hold on, I'm not getting any shots? Well, no, I got to get my shots. I'm out here on the floor. Let me get my shots. Well, they're not falling because, at Wisconsin, he was a guy that scored 16 and shot 15 times. That ain't going to work on KU. You're not shooting 15 times and score 16 points as a Jayhawk.
Yeah, I think that's been maybe the biggest disappointment for this team was, A.J. Storr not being able to really find his footing. And I would like to say that, give him time. Maybe he's going to be a Remy Martin-like player or a Malik Newman-like player. Once the calendar turns, February, March, you get the best version of him. But I don't know how you could see it. And I do want to say that with the rotation problems, I think partial blame is Bill Self of, maybe having more of that loyalty of I want to go with my guys that have been here, that have been starting all year, than somebody that's been maybe more inconsistent. With A.J. Storr and Rylan Griffin, look, I think they're very talented players. Yeah. They obviously were, but the problem was when KJ Adams went out, they really didn't take that spot and run with it. That's right. Another thing. My issue is with Flory Badunga. He did take that spot and run with it. And yet then on Saturday when things were collapsing, they were melting down, there was just that lack of trust in Flory Badunga, and they'd rather go with the experienced guys. But I think it's a combination of both. You have a coach that isn't really sold, it feels like, on the guys they've brought in or where they're at this point. And then I also think it's some of the players that haven't really done much with the opportunity. You've had some guys that were great three-point shooters elsewhere. That was a big problem for last year's KU team. And they haven't really been much better. They haven't been better at the free throw line. They haven't been better scorers since coming to KU. And who knows? Like you said, you can have faith and trust in Bill Self that eventually they get things going. But as we said with Kansas State, time's running out. I mean, you get into late February and you're still having games like you did on Saturday. You can miss me with they're going to turn things around come tournament time. Tell me why. Why would that all of a sudden change just because you have a coach who's done it before? I'm just not sure the puzzles fit.
Yeah. Last point on this, and just looking at A.J. Storr's game log at the end of last year, he scores 13 points on 15 shots. He scores 24 points on 21 shots. He scores 20 points on 23 shots. He scores 30 on 16. That was a big game for him. He scores 16 points on 13 shots, 17 points on 17 shots, 19 points on 16 shots. That's what we were seeing from A.J. Storr. He's not getting that volume at KU. And look, I was annoyed when Rylan Griffin chose KU because I've never seen Rylan Griffin miss a shot when Missouri played him. So, that guy never missed. But, it's a matter of finding it and those guys willing to play that role as well. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. I want to talk Mizzou because, it's funny, K-State turning things around and KU heading the opposite direction, and Mizzou's just sort of been steady there. So it becomes less of like the lead story, but they've got 2 fantastic road wins, and they're moving higher and higher up into the rankings. We'll see when the top 25 is released where they're at in the rankings, and all alone third place in the SEC. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk a little Mizzou on the other side. More Zone next. All right, men, if you're out there and you happen to be suffering from erectile dysfunction, you know it is an issue with you and your relationship. And look, man, Valentine's Day right around the corner. It is the season of love. in the next hour. You know, he's wearing a number of hats this week. You know, he's doing stuff for Fanside at an Arrowhead Attic and everything that he does at the Super Bowl, but also hanging out with us from time to time. Jack Johnson back in the studio. Let's talk about this Missouri team. They head to Mississippi State, and they just simply dominate Mississippi State. It is not a place that Missouri has had much success going down to Starkville and winning. And they took care of business in overwhelming fashion. It is a team that now has only 2 losses in SEC play, a game in which was just sort of off against Texas. And then Auburn was on in that game. There weren't many teams that were beating Auburn that night, certainly not Missouri. And they've had in the other 2 losses this year, you know, they had that lead against Memphis that they ended up blowing and losing that game, and then back and forth with Illinois in just what was a classic, bragging rights game there in St. Louis was an awesome one. But going down to Mississippi State and taking care of business, beating Ole Miss in a way that they win by 8, but it never really felt like they were going to lose that game. They just felt like they were the better team throughout the entirety of that game at home. And this team, we talk about the things that are going on with Kansas, but this team just looks like it fits right now, and they are moving up and up and up. They're 23 in KenPom now. In the last 2 weeks, they've gone from like 50 to 23 in KenPom, sitting all alone in 3rd place in the SEC. Auburn 8-0, Alabama 8-1, Mizzou sitting at 6-2, and I don't know that you would get much argument if you say Missouri has the best shooter in America right now, in Caleb Grill. I mean, who's shooting the ball better than Caleb Grill right now? And by the way, he was 6 of 11 against Mississippi State. If you take away his open looks, he was 5 of 10. He went 1 of 2 when he was left wide open. There was one in the corner. He was left wide open in the first half, and he made it. And then in the second half was left wide open in the corner and missed it. And my son goes, he was too close. He was too close to the basket when he shot that one because it was right on the three-point line. Like, what is he doing, man? He was knocking down from the logo, 40-foot jumpers, fading away, guys in his face. He has been unbelievable. And a big reason why Mizzou is playing the way that they are right now, because Tamar Bates doesn't have to be the big scorer. He scored almost 30 against KU. Caleb Grill didn't play in that game. But Caleb Grill, since that Auburn loss, is 26 of 52 from behind the arc, shooting 50% from behind the arc. And not shooting 50% on 10 shots. You know what I mean? Like, he's shooting 50% on 52 three-point attempts. And he changes the way that teams have to guard Mizzou. It creates more one-on-ones for Mark Mitchell. It creates more one-on-ones for, Tamar Bates, because you've got guys coming off screens, hedging, trying to get out there to stop Caleb Grill when they're moving him all around, because they know if he touches the ball, he's going to make it, and that's what he was doing against Mississippi State. And he's not the only one that needs to score on this team. Like, I've been thoroughly impressed as the season has gone along with this team and with Dennis Gates and what he's done with this team. And it makes me more and more confident, Jack, that last year it was Dennis Gates just simply playing undermanned. The 2 injuries that happened with Tanjay and Caleb Grill at the beginning of the season last year, and having to rely on guys who were, you got a point guard that's just an average player, and one of your better players, seniors, is just an average player from UNI, who was a nice role player when you had Kobe and Demoy Hodge and those guys. But now he's put together a team that just simply fits, and Caleb Grill has changed the calculus with how teams have to defend him.
They're not just doing it, in a lackluster conference either. This is the best conference in college basketball right now. The fact they're 3rd place alone and getting better at this point in time, it can allow Missouri fans to dream a little bit. I mean, seriously, this is a team that can go toe-to-toe with some of the top teams in the conference. And, you get to March Madness, you come out of the SEC as a top 3 finisher, you are going to be one of the top favorites to maybe get to the Final Four, at least in the top 15 of all the teams we'd be talking about. So for Missouri, I think offensively they got a lot of great outside shooters. They're incredibly physical. They can turn you over a lot. I've been very impressed with how they've been able to respond considering what they were last year. But I think you're exactly right. They had a lot of injuries to deal with. A lot of guys didn't fit. This team, they almost fit perfectly.
Yeah, it's and they understand their roles and they play that role. They play that role. You don't have guys coming in and trying to, chuck up threes randomly. Guys coming in and trying to play one-on-one basketball because now I got a chance to go out there and play. Like, guys are coming in the game. This is what I need you to do. this is what you go and do, and if you don't do it, then you're coming out of the game. I mean, Warwick is a guy that can score, at any point. He dropped like 20 against Auburn, but he played 11 minutes, and he comes into the game, plays 2 minutes, gives up 3 rebounds, and comes immediately out of the game. It's like, yeah, you can score, but you're not going to get a chance to score if you're not doing the other things you need to do while you're on the floor. So it's been an interesting month for all 3 of the local teams. A couple of them heading in the right direction, one of them heading in the wrong direction. We'll see tonight what that looks like with KU and Iowa State. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Jack Johnson, Dylan Michaels, Sterling Holmes hanging out with us here on Radio Row. Our coverage presented by Xfinity, Shamrock Roofing and Construction, The Big Biscuit, and Subaru of Olathe. Jack, Todd, and I were very responsible last night, Jack and Dylan. We got into the hotel room. We went and set up everything here at Radio Row. Grabbed some food, a little shrimp po' boy, because that's what one does, and then headed back to the room and got in bed and said, you know what? I know that Sunday night's one of the few nights that we have open, but I ain't starting off the week by not getting any sleep. And so I'm going to be a responsible big boy, and I'm going to go to sleep early. And then we got some text at about 9:45 from Mick Schaefer that said, hey, boys, nightcap. And I said, yeah, man, I am in the bed. I am out. And Sterling, you were also very responsible last night, right? You were very responsible in early bedtime for you?
Yeah, we'll go with that. I mean,
okay. Early can mean a lot. Early morning.
Early morning.
Early morning bedtime for you.
Well, when you talk to a guy from Norway, you're gonna talk about his life story. So I talked to Ronnie from Norway for 2 hours at the bar. It was great.
That makes sense.
I mean, why wouldn't you? It was a lot of fun. Yeah. Good dude. And then I decided to go to the casino for a little bit.
As you should.
Not great as far as the return. Not a good ROI on my investment there. Had some great food, though.
Yeah.
The beers were flowing. The frozen cocktails were they saw me walk in, and they're like, this guy's trouble. Frozen cocktails hate to see me. They hate to see this guy.
I bet. The frozen cocktail said this guy's trouble.
This guy's trouble.
That's what it was. So you didn't get a great return on investment on your trip to the casino, and you didn't get a great return on your investment on your sleep.
No.
So,
I am exhausted, but that's what we do. We power through. I'm a professional, and I'm here, and I'm just going to drink a lot of coffee and cocktails. You got to bounce back. The rum and pineapple is going to start flowing soon, boys.
So Jack and Dylan, I want to set the scene for you here because what I'm looking at with Sterling sitting across from me. I'm looking at a man who has the mustache of Sterling, right? He's got the coiffed hair, fresh haircut. He's got a brown and then striped sort of flowery pearl snap with a bolo tie that is turquoise, teal, silver with the black threads. That's what I'm looking at right now.
You could have said any article of clothing. It could have been as wild or zany as it could have been, and I would have believed you. I would have believed every word. You could have said that.
Pearl snap, double-breasted pockets.
Of course.
Yeah.
With a bolo tie.
Yeah. It's a good Monday outfit.
The underdressed for the occasion out there?
The bolo tie makes them uniquely dressed.
Yeah, well, for tonight, it helps.
Are you going to rock that tonight?
You got to be a peacock.
Okay.
You got to let me fly.
Yeah,
and so I'm going to fly around the room, and it'll be suits the rest of the week. Of course, I'm a classy man, Jason. But the bolo tie I thought was a nice touch for Monday.
Yeah, we flew on the plane, guys, with pretty much every media member in Kansas City, and Sterling went to go to the restroom with Todd. They went together. I don't know if they went together, but they walked to that place together.
Well, it's efficient.
And Sterling was like, "Hey man, can you watch my stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah." So then we had to move to a different spot, so I had to pick up his suit bag.
Yeah.
And move it. And I looked at Jesse Newell and I said, "You got your suit bag, Jesse?" It's like Blair Kirkhoff. Blair, you got your suit bag ready to go? Anybody else missing a suit bag? Because I got Sterling's suit bag here for Radio Row this week. They did not have a suit bag, Sterling, just so you know.
No, and then I walked back with a beer. Nervous flyer. So to calm my nerves, I grabbed an ICB. That's an ice cold beer for those that need to know what that is. Grabbed my beer. Did not know you can't take a beer on the plane. I just assumed that it's like coffee, where you can take coffee on a plane. What's no issue.
You guys, when you fly, you typically see a lot of people just walking, one for the road, just double fisting the beers while they're getting on the plane.
They confiscated my 30-pack of Busch Light last time I flew. So
yeah,
it's
kind of
that's a new rule.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and big plane has really they need to
big
calm down. Big airline needs to calm down let me bring my ICB on the plane. So I was forced to chug it, and as I'm chugging the beer before I get on the plane, just the entire Chiefs cheerleaders just walk by me, and I'm like, great, this is, of course, I look like an absolute buffoon right here. But yeah, it was a great.
That's sort of what they're used to anyway. I mean, that's not out of the ordinary for you. So yeah,
Sterling, how's the airline going to charge you $8 for a beer if they let you bring the beer on? You know,
they actually didn't charge me. I did get a beer. I got a nice Voodoo Ranger.
There you go. Hell yeah.
And they just didn't charge me. It was nice.
Yeah, we had on our flight. It was the three of us, and then we had Jesse Newell, Sam McDowell, Blair Kirkhoff, Vahe, Rob Collins, John Holt, Chiefs cheerleaders.
Bobby Bell.
Bobby Bell was on our flight as well, which I find interesting because, like, the TV crew that was flying with us when we were at the luggage carousel, Bobby Bell was being interviewed on TV by them, and the people standing around that were not associated with Kansas City at all or at different carousels with their bags coming out were like, who is that? Look at that. Somebody over there? Is that somebody? That's got to be somebody, right? They're interviewing him? That's got to be somebody. I always like just looking around to see people's reactions to when somebody's famous being interviewed and they don't really know who it is. But that's Bobby Bell was on our flight too. So yeah, it was a packed. The one flight that was direct yesterday, shockingly, the media all jumped on that one.
What was even funnier, just with that story, basically. Last night we were trying to get some B-film for some of the podcasts and YouTube stuff that I do, right? So they're getting some B-roll.
Yeah, B-roll.
And they had some cameras and stuff, and we're going down Bourbon Street. It's my first time on Bourbon Street, and we met this family of people from London. So they all had a British accent, and they saw the videos, and they're taking it of me, and they just, oh, are you famous? Are you famous? And they all like taking pictures of me, and I'm like, what is going on?
Let them know you play the footy.
I didn't even say.
Play a little footy.
I play a little football.
I grew up with
Arikine.
Arikine.
Yeah.
I go right down the street from Arikine. Me and him, we go way back. And then I don't know that you knew this, Sterling, but I told the boys back at the station that Todd and I became best friends with Lane Johnson last night.
Oh, nice.
Yes, Lane Johnson.
Did you tell him that it's a false start, try to get in his dome a little bit, or?
I told him that I heard that these officials, one of them's from Kansas, so he's going to be paying really close attention to the guy in green at right tackle.
Yeah.
The guy in white and red doesn't matter as much as the guy in green
correct.
At right tackle. No, we were checking into our Eagles hotel where we are staying.
Oh, nice.
And as I was wearing my Unreal pullover.
It's a great polo.
As we got to the hotel, there was a couple in front of us that were Eagles fans were walking right next to us. She was wearing some beads that were green, and she looked at me and said, this is the Eagles hotel, right? I'm aware. Yeah, I know that. But we were checking in, and a large individual walks up behind us, and Todd Lebo turns around and goes, we both knew it was Lane Johnson walking. I'm like, hey, he turned around and goes, I know who you are. And Todd goes, Boomer, Sooner. And they talked.
Nice.
They started talking Oklahoma players.
So Lebo knows Lane? Is that just a story?
And then we helped Lane out. He asked if we knew where Drago's was, and I said, Drago! Like in Rocky. I didn't do that. But he asked if we knew where Drago's was. I'm like, no. And then we asked the person that was checking us into our room. He told us. And
the
then
concierge.
We said, hey, Lane, it's right downstairs, man. That's where Drago's is. You're welcome. Tell him I sent you. You get a good seat, man. So that was the highlight of our night, really,
nice.
what it was.
I'd rather mechanical bull, if that counts.
That does count.
Sounded kind of fun, so I did it.
Jack, last time you rode a mechanical bull?
Probably within the year. There's one over at PBR at Power and Light.
Yeah.
They got a mechanical bull there, so
I'd
I'd say it was last year.
Okay,
Jack.
I have never been on that PBR bull. Spent many a nights and many hours in PBR back in the day before moving to Louisville. I have never been on that PBR bull.
You did know I used to operate the mechanical bull.
At PBR?
In Philly, yeah.
Oh, in Philly.
For a
Is
little
there a
bit.
PBR in Philly?
Yeah, it's a PBR there. I used to operate the bull for a little bit.
It's a Cornish company in Philly. Okay, that's cool. There are a lot of different places. Baltimore has a
yeah.
area,
It's all
Louisville has a-
owned by like Xfinity or whatever the company is.
Of course, you ran the
It was fun.
That was not surprising.
Very
at all.
enjoyable.
All right. So, how quickly did you realize that it was a real report of Luka and Anthony Davis, guys? How long did it take you to figure out it wasn't somebody being hacked, or an Adarn Schefter, because anytime there's an M in somebody's name, all you got to do is the RN, like Sharn Sharania, like not Shams or Sharns, like Adarn Schefter, like was it Who's Been Hacked? Because that's not a real trade. This is just dumb, and people are throwing stuff out there. It took a little bit before I started to believe it.
Once the ESPN banner came on my phone, that's when I believed it, because I was like, it was so quiet. There was no talks about it. No one would have ever assumed that Luka Doncic would be on the move. I understand maybe Anthony Davis could have potentially been on the trade block, but he's having a hell of a season. I mean, he's having a career year for Anthony Davis, so you thought maybe the Lakers would try and run it out one more year with him and LeBron because of LeBron's age. So it was just surprising all around when, Mikal Bridges went for five?
Yeah, five first-rounders.
5 first-rounders. Now, I get it's a little different. 5 first-rounders in the NBA, especially if you are in the lower 15. It's not like an NFL first-rounder. They're not quite as valuable. I understand that. But still, 5 first-rounders, and you get Max Christie, a 2029 first, and Anthony Davis, who is also 31 and oft-injured for a player who's entering his prime, who just took you to the Western Conference Finals. I don't understand the Mavericks' thought process. I know they've talked about culture, and there have been, some rumblings of concern about his conditioning, but I'm just completely perplexed on why the Dallas Mavericks thought that this was a good idea at all, because I get that they might be better this year because Luka's injured and you needed a big man, all that stuff. You're doing pretty good with Kyrie and the smattering of help you have from the rest of the team. So if you think this year you have a better chance with an Anthony Davis instead of an injured Luka, I get it. But going forward, you basically just destroyed your future for a chance of maybe making the second round in the Western Conference. I just don't – I can't comprehend this. If I was a Mavericks fan, I would be devastated right now.
Most everybody is, right? I mean, Patrick Mahomes is sick right now. That's what he said. It's what he tweeted out. Dylan, do you have the clip that I sent you from that I slid into your DMs of Patrick yesterday, or was it Saturday? Whenever that damn trade came down. But Pat. Yeah, just that part, Dylan. So the Chiefs had a scheduled tweet going out. So you got to make sure the jersey is right. It's an LIX Patrick Mahomes Super Bowl jersey. So he's being interviewed about his favorite things right now. Favorite barbecue, favorite this, favorite that. And this went out as a scheduled tweet right after Mahomes found out about the Luka trade. Here's Mahomes, a little part of that.
Currently Luka Doncic.
Favorite athlete, Mahomes. Currently, Luka Doncic.
They do have similar builds too, right?
Luka Doncic.
Where you're like, it's a slight dad bod, but they're somehow like the best at their sport, and you're like, wait, how is that guy who's powered on Coors Light somehow the best athlete?
Right, and so that was kind of funny. And they said, sorry about the scheduled tweet. So that was not planned for Patrick Mahomes. There's so many parts of this that it's like so surprising, and it makes almost no sense from the Dallas Mavericks standpoint. Maybe they'll be right in a number of years, but it's going to take a while for them to be right. But in the meantime, there's like a revolt that's happening. Like, even if you're right down the road, is it worth the revolt that's happening right now with the Mavericks fan base? I mean, ultimately, the fans will come back if you're winning and you win a championship with AD. I mean, if they do that, we'll see. But it's like, who's going to score for Dallas and who's going to play defense for the Lakers? Like, there's got to be other moves that are coming.
Oh, man, yeah.
But I don't know that I can remember a fan base so unanimously turning on the organization with a trade of a player like this, to where they were having a memorial outside the arena for Luka, and dudes brought the casket to the steps of the arena and screaming about, no, why? No, acting like it was an actual funeral for the Dallas Mavericks.
But it really would be like if the Bucks traded Giannis. Right? It would be like I don't think Patrick's the best one. I think it would be like if the Bills traded Josh Allen. I think that's more like Luka, right? I don't think Luka's maybe the number one player, but he's top 3. Josh Allen, I think, is the top 3 player. It would be like if the Bills traded him for Aaron Rodgers and a third-round draft pick is almost what the trade feels like. It's just.
But I don't even think there's a comparison in the NFL quarterback to quarterback, Jack. My comparison that I came up with was like Lamar Jackson for Mike Evans.
Yeah.
Or Lamar Jackson for like maybe Myles Garrett is asking for a trade. So because you're talking about different way, like Lamar Jackson is a guy that Luka Doncic, you can build your organization around. Anthony Davis is a piece that will go with an organization that, can play at a high level. But like the guys we're talking about, Burrow, Lamar, people are talking about different quarterbacks and trading for another quarterback. Like, I don't even think it's quarterback for quarterback. I think it's quarterback for a dominant player that's a little bit older in a different part of the field. You're going to trade Joe Burrow for Mike Evans, or you're going to trade Lamar Jackson for Mike Evans, or something like that. That would be the comparison I would make.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying yesterday to figure out what exactly it would look like on the NFL side, and I'm not even sure a deal like this could be pulled off on the NFL side because, I mean, Anthony Davis, he has been phenomenal this year for the Lakers. He was great last year, but you're also talking about Luka Doncic, who, correct me if I'm wrong, led the league in scoring last year, like 34 points a game, and yeah, I think he's been out since Christmas, if I'm correct.
He's played
on
22 games this year, so it's not much.
Not much, but he's also 25. He's just about to turn 26. Anthony Davis is going to be 32, I think, next year, and he's battled injuries as well. So for Dallas, I'm not sure why, after you just got to the finals, in which Luka basically carried that team alongside Kyrie Irving, you think, well, maybe this is the time to make a move like that because we need Anthony Davis. You get a first-round pick, but not till 2029. And you sent more players with Luka Doncic. So I don't get the reasoning for the Mavericks. And the fact that Jason Kidd wasn't even talked to about, like, that whole disconnect feels so fishy to me. And I think the last time I had a reaction to a trade like this, and it's not really that close, was when the Texans traded DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson and
That's right.
nothing. And that was the last time I saw,
said, pennies.
Yeah, pennies. Like, you looked at that deal and you went, I don't get the side of that for Houston.
That's a good one.
At all.
Really good
but
one.
That's the reasoning for this NBA trade, why it shook the entire sports world, is I'm not sure if you propose this to 28, 29 other GMs, they would make a deal like this because you're not trading away your franchise centerpiece who's not even 26 years old.
There was a tweet that went around yesterday of a screenshot of a tweet in 2023, I think it was, at the beginning of the 23-24 NBA season that said, Anthony Davis and a first-rounder for Luka Doncic. Who says no? And it was like a Lakers account, and then this Mavericks account was like, "You're dumb, just log off," or whatever they say, like, delete your account or something like that. You're so dumb, like that would never happen. There's no way that would. And it's like, a year later, like, holy bleep, it was Anthony Davis and a first-rounder for Luka Doncic. Like, nobody would say yes to that, and they did. And then they're acting like we got ahead of this, what's going to be a tumultuous summer, because we're going to have to pay him. Like, well, hold on.
Of course
it's
you pay
tumultuous
him.
because you're going to have to pay him a Supermax deal?
You should be honored to have to pay. Like, that's the point of drafting a franchise, because the NBA is different than other sports. If you have one franchise-altering player, like a Luka, like a Giannis, like a Nikola Jokic, right? You can, even like LeBron to an extent when he's held. Embiid. But Embiid's more like Zion Williamson at this point, where it's like the talent's there, but
with your Sixers. Sorry, I didn't.
That hurt.
You and Jack, I didn't need to bring that up.
No, that was
Sorry about that.
brutal. You were a mean man.
I know.
But you can change a franchise with one guy way easier than any other sport. I am just, again, I am perplexed by this, and the GM, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but he keeps emphasizing the importance of culture. It's the same guy that after they won, Luka was drinking a beer after a game, and he came up and grabbed the beer out of his hand. It's just, I don't know what was going on between those two, but it seemed like, again, I'm not in the Dallas Mavericks organization. I'm not behind the scenes, but it seemed like there had to be more to the story because you don't just do this.
Yep. I'm with you, man. All right, we need to take a timeout. We will do that. Jack, appreciate you hanging out with us, man. Field Yates will come up at noon. We'll take a timeout, and we'll continue hanging out at Radio Row. Field Yates at noon, and Mick Schaefer coming up at 1 o'clock. We'll continue with our conversation here. We'll talk a little NFL football as the teams arrived yesterday. We got opening night tonight, 7 o'clock starting with opening night, 7 to 8, the Eagles. 8 to 9, the crossover that they do with the fun on-stage stuff with the Eagles and Chiefs players combined. And then 9 to 10, will be the Chiefs' availability. They will be going second tonight. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. as we continue rolling along. And we'll talk with Field Yates coming up at noon from ESPN. He was at the Senior Bowl. Get his thoughts on an early look at what this matchup is going to be with Chiefs and Eagles. Get a prediction from Field Yates 6 days out from this game taking place. Then we'll hang out with Mick Schaefer, who was down here. He drove in on Saturday, and they were there for the arrival. The Chiefs arrived right before us.
Yeah.
So the Chiefs landed about 20 minutes before we landed. So we were on the other side of the airport. So while we were taxiing into our gate to get off the plane, we could see the other side of the Chiefs plane.
Yeah.
I took a picture of the other side of the Chiefs plane with nobody there.
Yeah.
I didn't tweet it out or anything. I just took a picture.
Be a boring picture.
Yeah. It didn't say Chiefs on it or anything. It just said United.
They have the hotel blocked off for us. I had to get out and walk.
Yeah. Well, it's probably the officials were standing out there, the refs.
The refs were actually blocking it off.
Sense.
So, and they had asked me. They said, "Have you paid us yet?" And we actually had to pay the ref. It was weird to get into our own hotel. Yeah, it was.
It was like, are you with the groom or the groom or the bride? And you go there. It's like Chiefs or Eagles. Chiefs, okay, you're gonna have to pay.
Yeah.
You have to pay the refs to get in. Eagles, we're just going to apologize because you're going to get screwed.
Well,
sorry, you've got to walk around. You've got to go. You actually have to do more work to finish at the same spot.
They got that money, baby. They got that paper.
Exactly right.
It's just paper.
Kansas City, a much richer city than Philadelphia.
Some say.
Everybody knows this.
Everybody's
aware. It's a common.
Rich in
sentiment.
heart.
That's right. I was looking at the matchups that we'll be talking about, and obviously Jalen Carter is going to be a big one in this game. And sort of looking at, was trying to do a deeper dive on these two teams as to what they have in common, how they got here. Also looking at some of the other teams in the championship games, the Final Four teams. Throw in Detroit too if you want to. Just
sure.
But the teams in the Final Four were interesting in that it's certainly the case for the Chiefs, and it's the case for the Eagles, in that their best defensive player is a defensive tackle, like Chris Jones and Jalen Carter. The Bills' best defensive player is Ed Oliver, defensive tackle. The Commanders' best defensive player, take a pick to those guys that are on the defensive line, defensive interior.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I was thinking about it from the perspective of Jalen Carter will line up on the left side of the defensive line almost exclusively. He does not move around like Chris Jones. He doesn't move from left side to the right side. He is almost exclusive lining up against the right guard or the center or the right tackle at times.
So that would
That's
mean
it.
Trey.
So it would be Trey and Creed and Juwan Taylor. It wouldn't be unless they specifically change course of what they've had to have mismatches with a left guard throughout the season.
Sure.
And it still has not resulted in Jalen Carter moving from the position that he plays, which is that left defensive tackle spot. He has played. I'll let you guys guess. You and Dylan. I don't know if you guys have seen this.
If you have the numbers, that's actually.
I have the exact numbers.
I was going to look
here.
it up, so I'm not going to look it up there.
I have the exact numbers here. So you and Dylan, in case you guys have not seen this.
Do you have percentages or do you have snap numbers?
I just have snap count numbers this year, raw numbers.
Okay.
So this counts as left defensive tackle, left defensive end, left outside linebacker,
sure,
as well, because they're rushers. End rushers are called linebackers. Like Sweat's an outside linebacker or whatever. Hassan Reddick was an outside linebacker, even though the guys are lining up 2-point stances, whatever. The left side of the line, he has played 984 snaps. Combined. What do you guys guess the right side of the line? At any point, right outside linebacker, right end, right defensive tackle.
73.
73 snaps. Dylan, you want to throw a dart as to how many snaps he's played on the right side of the line?
I was going to go in that area, so I'll go 83.
Okay. 29.
Wow. So he does
984 to 29. 984 on the year on the left side of the defensive line, and almost 830 of those are left defensive tackle. It's just what he does. The right side, 29 total snaps this year.
So then it would be Milton Williams or
Milton Williams moves around.
Jordan Davis.
Jordan Davis plays much fewer snaps than Milton Williams. Jordan Davis starts, but he only plays, I think the last two games combined, he's played 30 snaps.
Okay.
Jordan Davis. It's Milton Williams. Jordan Davis will start, but Milton Williams is going to get $20 million in the offseason. Okay? That guy's going to go and get paid. I doubt the Eagles are going to sign him, because that's what you've got Jalen Carter there for.
Yeah.
But Milton Williams is about to get $20 million a year in the offseason from somebody. I don't know who's going to sign him, but somebody's going to pay him $20 million a year. That's the type of player Milton Williams is. He's not as known as Jalen Carter,
correct,
but he's a diet Chris Jones.
Sure.
Diet Chris Jones in that he'll move around. He'll play on the end. They'll move him to different mismatches. He doesn't have to specifically play defensive tackle. He'll line up against Joe Thuney. He'll line up against Jawan Taylor. Not like Chris Jones, because Chris Jones has many, many more snaps and a higher percentage of snap counts against tackles than Milton Williams does. But they will move Milton Williams around to find the mismatch. That's where Caliendo and Thuney, I think this is going to be a game where we know Jalen Carter lines up on the left side. I think it's a game where they'll leave Jalen Carter there and they'll put Milton Williams there against Caliendo, as they've done all year, and they've moved him around to try to find the mismatch, try to find the weak link in the system, and that is right now, that is Caliendo. And as I was thinking about it, I'm like, depending on what Trey Smith does, this is a mammoth game for Trey Smith. He is a free agent, and he is going to be almost exclusively matching up against Jalen Carter throughout this game. If he has an awesome game, he would have made himself a lot of money. If Jalen Carter is dominant and Trey Smith is missing blocks and having to hold or getting pushed around by Jalen Carter, or Jalen Carter just tossing him aside,
he might be coming back to Kansas City.
I mean, you've got millions and millions and millions of people watching this one on, in the Super Bowl. But also, it's like, if Trey Smith does dominate, at that point, you go, all right, so the money that's being spent on guards, if we're saying the 4 teams in the AFC and NFC Championship, their best player was a defensive tackle, then does that start to put more emphasis on a Trey Smith, a Joe Thuney, a guard, a center, spending more money there, being willing to spend more money there, as opposed to conventional wisdom, which was, now you piece together the interior, you take care of your tackles and center, and guards are interchangeable. Well, Ed Oliver and Payne, Allen for the Commanders, Jalen Carter, Chris Jones, guys who are game wreckers, are right there on the interior of the defensive line.
Well, I think Kansas City also has a unique perspective when it comes to paying guards and having good guards. I think the understanding is here because of going back to Will Shields and Brian Waters, and the understanding that, you can't have a weak link, and I don't know. I don't want to call Caliendo a weak link because we don't know enough about him yet. Maybe he takes over next year and Caliendo's great, but I do think Kansas City is more apt to pay a guy like Trey Smith because they've done it in the past, and they've done it recently with Joe Thuney. They made Joe Thuney one of the highest paid guards in all of football because they understood the value of him. They actually have spent more money, in my opinion, almost resources on guard than they have on tackles. Right? I think for Patrick, he's a unique quarterback where he can make guys miss as long as the tackles are average.
Yeah.
As long as he's not getting pressure right up the middle, Patrick's going to find ways to extend plays. So I do wonder, how much they will value that in the offseason versus tackle. They like the athleticism at tackle, but they don't care if you're an elite tackle, right? Because Jawan Taylor, I think, fits them way better than Orlando Brown Jr. did at left tackle. Now, who's better remains to be seen. I think
Jawan Taylor could line up onside and not false start.
Then it's clearly him. But as far as like athleticism, they value that, and so
for sure.
and so more so than other teams.
Yeah.
So I do wonder, do they value Trey Smith more than other teams because of the necessity of keeping Patrick at least upright in the middle?
It almost feels like everybody in Chicago is already counting Trey Smith on their team. I mean, like Bears, well, they're going to go out and pay for Trey Smith. They're going to go out and get this person.
Well, if you offer, let's say, game $25 million a year, then yes, of course, then he's gone, and you don't blame the guy.
And by the way, he's a 6th rounder.
Yes.
So he's not making first-round money on your rookie deal. He's making 6th-round money. So go and get as much money as you can, Trey.
Yes.
That's awesome. And good for you. But he's got a chance to make a lot of money on Sunday.
Yes.
Because if he goes out there and plays well against Jalen Carter, there'll be a lot of teams in the NFC that are going to go, I want that guy to play right guard. Maybe in the NFC East.
Yeah.
Maybe teams in the NFC East, the other 3 teams are saying, we got to play Jalen Carter twice a year.
Washington.
And we got to need it guard. Let's go get this guy and bring him in because he'll be going up against Jalen Carter twice a year.
Yeah, and for the Chiefs, you're looking this is Caliendo's time. If Caliendo does good does well in this game, I think you're looking and going, is he your legit long-term long term's relative, of course,
Yeah.
but is he your guy at guard? Do you trust him? Does that give you confidence to
Yeah.
potentially walk on Trey Smith if
Yeah.
that's the case?
Or is it Wanya? Is it Kingsley?
Sure.
Like, I mean, again, I think there's a reason why they keep activating Kingsley and inactive with Wanya is because
He's going to
Kingsley
catch a pass, Jason.
That's right. But I think it's Kingsley playing guard. I think they liked what they saw in
Yeah.
the game against the Denver Broncos with Kingsley at guard, and that's why he's active and Wanya Morris is not, because they've got DJ Humphries and they've got Jawan Taylor and they've got Joe Tooney at tackle, so they've got 3 tackles they feel like, and they've got a guy now that can come in and play guard in Kingsley. And in a pinch, do you need him to play a tackle? Maybe you wouldn't want him to do that, but I wonder if that's now maybe the pivot moving forward for this team, and Kingsley moving to guard. Norzad, I thought, held his own in the game that he played. By the way, playing next to Kingsley at left guard. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But just looking at the snap counts, I shocked to see that he's pretty much an anchor at left defensive tackle for the Philadelphia
And it'll be
Eagles.
fun to watch.
Yeah.
Honestly, fun to watch. Jalen
Yes.
Carter versus Trey Smith is going to be a very enjoyable.
It's going to be a
watch.
huge matchup in this game. A huge matchup in this game because the Eagles are going to base what I believe probably their defense on is stopping the run with light boxes. That's what they want to do. Can you stop the run with light boxes? Those defensive linemen certainly help, but can you stop the run with light boxes? If they do, then the Chiefs are in for a long day, I think, offensively.
Yeah.
But if they're able to run against what the Philadelphia Eagles want to do and make them get a little bit bigger to take away from that secondary, hey, great, because now they become a little bit less in the secondary. But Milton Williams, I looked it up, also lined up as a defensive end 124 snaps this year.
Okay.
So even though he's a defensive but like I said, he's Chris Jones light. He's a diet Chris Jones, and maybe like a vegan Chris Jones. I don't know, like a really, really diet Chris Jones. Like he's not Chris Jones. He's not going to get $30 million.
Atkins. Call him Atkins.
That's right. Again, he's going to get $20 million a year this offseason. He's not going to get 30 like Chris Jones. But he's a hell of a player. He's somebody that people need to pay attention to is Milton Williams in this game, because that's going to be a key, because he's going to be going up against Caliendo or Joe Tooney as well, and he's a bigger dude. So then you've got the bull rush. Then you've got the power if Milton Williams goes out to defensive end, because that's a bigger dude. We'll take a timeout, come back, more zone next. Continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, heading up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Field Yates coming up at noon. Our live coverage from Radio Row presented by the CW Farm and Ranch Venue, Adams Toyota Lee Summit, Made in KC, and McGregor's Butcher and Bistro. We continue here. We will hang out with Mick Schaefer coming up later on in the show as well, but Field Yates will join us in the next segment. We'll talk some NFL football, some Super Bowl with Field Yates. And you know, one of the things that I think is a fascinating sort of storyline backdrop to this whole thing is depending on which coach wins, what that does for a reputation and a legacy for each particular coach. I mean, Nick Sirianni is a guy that does get a lot of criticism around the NFL, and then he would be a Super Bowl winning coach if he wins on Sunday. Whereas, you know, Andy Reid would get Super Bowl number 4 in his resume and get closer and closer to catching Bill Belichick while also being the all-time leader in wins for both the Eagles and the Chiefs and going to all these different Super Bowls. And, you know, what that does for his legacy of moving, you know, further and further up the ladder of being considered the greatest coach of all time. You know, certainly in the game, he's the best coach right now. And, you know, I think pretty much every single team would probably trade with Chiefs and Andy Reid. Certainly the Chiefs wouldn't trade Andy Reid for anybody. But what it does for these coaches, we'll talk with Field Yates about that. If there's anything that you know, we see from these teams, like we talked about, you know, what we learned from these teams that are here and what we learned from maybe the 4 teams in the championship games. Certainly defensive tackle being one of those. Jalen Carter being a big part of this one. Certainly from the defensive side for the Chiefs, Chris Jones being a big part of this matchup this weekend, and what these two teams can do, whether it's running the ball or stopping the run. Certainly from the Chiefs' perspective, stopping the run of Saquon Barkley and not having to load up the box to stop the run. That would be ideal. If you don't have to load up the box and bring extra guys down to stop the run, then you're ahead of the game. You know, not literally in the scoreboard, but you're ahead of the game. If you've got to come down and load up the box, yeah, then it sets up the extra layers of offense that the Eagles can exploit, whether that be Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. Like, they've got a number of pieces, and it's weird because it feels like the offense this year is better than it was 2 years ago with Jalen Hurts playing at a lesser level than he did 2 years ago, getting sacked more, not able to escape as much. We'll talk with Field Yates coming up next.
He'll help you fantasy focus while he scoops the news. He's on TV more often than he's in bed. He'll break down the NFL without a single hair ever out of place. It's Field Yates of ESPN. Now in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, hanging out at Radio Row in New Orleans. It's Super Bowl 59, our first day of coverage. We'll have a bunch of guests. We'll start to get crazy over the next few days, certainly starting tomorrow. We'll see who stops by over the next couple of hours. Hoping to catch up with Field Yates here soon. He was at the Senior Bowl over the weekend and will be here in New Orleans covering Super Bowl 59. And obviously there's a lot of legacy on the line. Anytime there's a Super Bowl, there's going to be a lot of legacy on the line each and every year of players getting their first Super Bowl or players, getting another one or adding to a Hall of Fame legacy. That's going to be the case coming up this weekend with the Chiefs and the Eagles. But we'll talk with Field Yates here in a little bit, and Mick Schaefer will join us a little bit later on in the show and get his thoughts on what he's seeing so far and hearing. He's been here for a couple of days, at least one day more than we have, but opening night coming up tonight, so we'll hear from all of the Chiefs players and the big event that they make it in the NFL now. There was a big event of opening night. It used to be like Media Day, which would be going on right now, and that would be where you'd have all the crazy wedding dresses and the questions and all of those odd things, and now it's much different. Now it's a made-for-TV event. They'll put the Eagles up there first from 7 to 8. They'll have players at the podium, and then people that aren't at the podium will just be available for people to walk around and interview and talk to. And then they'll have sort of that crossover from 8 to 9. We saw this, a couple of years ago when the Kelseys were out there together, and then when the 49ers and Chiefs faced off, then it was the tight ends, Kittle and Travis Kelce. So we'll see what they have this go around with the crossover from the Eagles going first and then the Chiefs getting up there. And then the Chiefs will be at the podium, and then we'll be able to talk to just pretty much everybody else on the team. And I've got a number of different ideas and thoughts on where I may want to go with some of these different interviews with the players. But at the podium tonight will be Chris Jones, Nick Bolton, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Justin Reed, Trent McDuffie, Isaiah Pacheco, Harrison Butker, DeAndre Hopkins, Andy Reid, and Xavier Worthy. Those will be the podium players tonight for the Kansas City Chiefs starting at 9 o'clock, and then everybody else will be made available. And I'll just be walking through, and you know what, my people, I'll just be walking through like the practice squad players, just really hanging out with the people I'm used to. So you're like me. You've watched football, really. You're on the team, but you've just been watching. What's that been like, right? I mean, that's pretty cool. What was your vantage point of 4th and 5? What did you think? What did you think on that one? That was cool, man. Yeah, absolutely. That was really cool. You know what? In fact, 2 years ago, one of the guys on the practice squad that was interviewed by a lot of people was Melvin Ingram. Because remember, he was on the Chiefs practice squad 2 years ago when the Chiefs played the Eagles in Phoenix. And it was like, hey, there's a couple practice squad players left over. Who's that? Oh, yeah, it's Melvin Ingram is over there. Or, I think that's who it was. That was on the, right? It was on the Chiefs, I thought. Oh, Melvin Gordon, Jesus. Not Melvin Ingram. Melvin Ingram was actually on the damn Chiefs, not in the year that they ended up winning, but Melvin Gordon, the running back. I'll get names right eventually. It's one of those things that's on like my bucket list to do before I pass is to get names right. Sometimes you get to everything on your list, sometimes you don't. It's like a list. It's like 78 or 79 on the list. There's a lot of people along the way that I'd like to meet and get their names wrong before I actually start getting names right. Yeah, you can't do it all in one day. You know what I mean? It takes a long time to get everything accomplished. But yeah, that was a practice squad player. It's like, oh, look at that, Melvin Gordon. That's right. He's on this team. Yeah. He didn't really talk much to anybody, but that'll be tonight as we'll be there at opening night tonight. So it'll be a lot of fun, and we'll bring all that sound to you tomorrow with all those different players. The Chiefs media availability will be tomorrow at 11 o'clock, so we'll have all of that for you right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB and all the different guests that'll stop by as well. But a legacy game is really interesting to me from a coaching standpoint. I'd mentioned it a little bit before we got here to talk to Field Yates. Like, if Sirianni wins this one, for as much as he's sort of like made fun of and take shots at him and not respected that much as a coach because he's a clown on the sideline. Walking up in that, he and Jalen Hurts don't seem to get along. In the Super Bowl, when he was sort of looking over at the Chiefs and sort of talking smack, and Jalen Hurts had to chill him out, like, all right, hey, coach, calm down, all right? Act like, you're a grown man. You're a coach of of men in this game, and he wasn't really acting like that. Then we know, of course, of, last year and leaving the field and Chiefs fans, see ya, blah, blah, blah. When they got the win, and hey, great win for them. And then it all went downhill after that for the Eagles, and the Chiefs went on to win a Super Bowl. But now if they end up winning a Super Bowl, he's gone to 2 in 3 years. He would have won a Super Bowl in his career. There's a number of other wins in the regular season, like he's 23, 24 games over 500 in his career as well. So I think that's going to be interesting there. Joined now by Field Yates from ESPN, our guest as we are hanging out here in New Orleans. Field, welcome into the show. How are you, sir?
I am doing great. New Orleans, what's happening down there this week? Is KU playing? Is Tulane now in the Big 12 and they're playing each other? SEC,
yes.
What's happening?
It's a big Tulane matchup. We're pumped about it. We're all going to the game tonight. Tulane taking on K-State. UMKC and Tulane tonight. We came down here just to cover that. And they had this Radio Row set up for it, which is really cool. They got a lot of signage and stuff for NFL, even though we're down here for that game. But, it's the place to be, Field. Radio Row here this week. It's getting crazier. People still setting up, on this Monday. But yeah, it's happening. It's here, and it'll be Sunday before we know it. We know that. We'll be sitting here every day breaking down the game, and by Friday we're like, hey, what way can we break the game down now? But we're going to wake up and it's like, oh my God, it's Super Bowl Sunday. It'll happen quickly.
No doubt. There's a million ways to do it. That much is for sure. And, there's a part of me that doesn't want this week to fly by because that means
right.
Football will be over, and we'll wake up on Monday and we'll say whatever it is, 197 days until kickoff of the next season. And there's a part of me that does want it to fly by because we know by, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of this week, we'll be dissecting things that are completely irrelevant and not even close to pertinent to the game on hand. But that is sort of the double-edged sword of Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Well, Super Bowl week started off with, somebody will be here walking around Radio Row on Wednesday, Field. A man by the name of Myles Garrett will be on Radio Row on Wednesday. I think there'll be something to talk to Myles Garrett about as he released a letter to the Cleveland Browns will trade Myles Garrett.
Yeah, the Browns are certainly of the mindset that it ain't going to happen, but, things change once it goes public because I think it does put a different level of pressure on the team. And the Browns need to make a decision here. They were 3-14 this past season. This team is not, one good addition this offseason away from competing. They have a massive, massive question mark at quarterback, perhaps the worst contract in the history of the league. Deshaun Watson still on the books, so for 2 more seasons. And he's, of course, a player who no longer is even an average starting quarterback, and he might miss the entirety of the year coming off of a torn Achilles. So anyways, a lot of different things they are navigating right now, but I do think that they will eventually start to change their stance a little bit. I think it would only be natural for Cleveland to at least explore some options here. And I said this recently on Twitter, so if anybody saw it, I apologize for reiterating, but Myles is a good enough player at an important enough position that every team, from the Titans picking 1 to the Chiefs and Eagles playing in the Super Bowl this weekend, is going to have a conversation. What's the deal look like? How does he fit? What can we pay him? Because he has 2 years left on his current contract. There's going to be a new deal if he does get traded. That is often how it goes. But I think the reality is if the Browns do entertain this, they're going to trade Myles Garrett to a team that Myles Garrett will want to be at. He's not requesting a trade from Cleveland because he hates the weather or something. He wants to win. And if you trade Myles Garrett to, and I'm just, pick a team. Jacksonville is picking 5th overall this year. Myles is not going to be happy, and Myles is going to say in part of the conversations, well, I'm not signing an extension with them, so
right.
Jacksonville isn't going to offer Cleveland what they want in return.
Mm-hmm. So
while, I've already heard from Browns fans saying, why would we trade him to the Chiefs so we can have picks 32, 31, and 32 over the next 3 years? That's not the point. You're not getting pick 5 because Myles isn't leaving for pick 5. So I do think that it's something that will take on a little bit more life as the Browns understand just that, Myles is public trade request, I think, puts a different level of pressure on them. But for now, patience is probably going to have to prevail because they really can't do anything until March, whatever it is, 11th or 12th, when the new league year begins.
I think they trade him to the L.A. Rams for Anthony Davis and a first-rounder. I think
You made the joke before I get it off, right?
That's the going rate.
I mean,
that's the going rate right now in L.A.
I know.
What do you think it would take then? Because obviously people will be dreaming, and it's like, wow, what would Myles Garrett look like in a Chiefs uniform? But they've got some expensive players, and they need to replenish some spots because they've got also some expensive players coming up for contract with McDuffie and George Karlaftis. What would it take? And tell me that the Bills won't do it.
Yeah. Well, the Bills, I guess, here, the trouble for the Bills right now is they are, and so let me start here. This applies to a few teams. I don't believe that having a quarterback who makes a ton of money is a problem for your roster. I don't buy the idea that it becomes harder. I buy the idea that it's important to find a quarterback that's worth paying top of the market money or close to it, right? So is it literally harder? Sure. Of course it would be great if your quarterback made $1 million a year and you had all that salary cap space. But I never have it. Like, the challenge is doing everything else right. I think for Kansas City, since this whatever you want to call this era, this run that they've been on has taken place, we've seen that they've probably gone the opposite way, right? It's been, hey, we're going to turn splash trades from like our one player into other teams' several other assets, right? The Tyreek Hill trade being the most obvious example of it. The Chiefs have been selective in their free agent spending. Joe Tooney was, at the time, the biggest contract for a guard, I believe, ever. So it's not like they haven't done something like this, but many of the trades that they have been making of late have been more, late-round picks, right? DeAndre Hopkins in a day 3 pick swap, or deal, or maybe it was round 3, but whatever it was. More of that nature, right? So I think probably given the core that they have and the fact that, the best investments for me are really the guys in which you're rewarding your own because you know the player inside and out, and that's a great example for the rest of the locker room. Like, I think reasonably speaking for the next few years, and I'm using few very vaguely, but between Patrick, Trent McDuffie, Creed Humphrey, Chris Jones, I don't know how likely it is to keep Trey Smith. I'd say right now he's probably going to have a real good chance to get a massive contract elsewhere. But you're talking about probably 5, 6, 7 guys at or near the top of their respective position markets. Probably makes the Chiefs a lot less likely. But I think you're swimming in the right waters, right? These teams that are saying to themselves, we can be disciplined like Kansas City is, but we also want to beat them. We haven't beaten them yet, right?
Yeah.
If they go, 3 for 3 and 4 for 6 or whatever it is on Sunday, like every other team is going to go to the desperate measures play, and that's why you might see teams like Buffalo or Detroit and others kind of at least explore, probe on it.
Will it take 3 firsts? Because you had mentioned that if they trade with the Chiefs, then you have 32 or 32 and 32, maybe, or 31 or 30 the next 3 years. That's not worth it. Is it going to be 3 first-rounders to get Myles Garrett?
I don't think it'll end up being that much, right? Unless it were Kansas City, because I think Cleveland would say, if we're going to do this, right? Part of it is also like who you're trading the player to. Browns fans might, they would just go nuts if they traded Myles Garrett away to, the best team in the NFL and, currently in the midst of one of the most historic dynasties that I've seen in my lifetime in team sports. I think it probably would be more like this. It is, I think, the baseline, and every team is going to be a little bit different, but the baseline is a first-round pick plus a premium asset, right? Now, if that first-round pick is the 8th overall pick, which is owned by Carolina, I don't think Carolina's going to make this deal, but then it might be pick 8 plus a premium asset, and that's it. If it's pick 22, which is the Chargers as of right now. Again, I'm picking these out arbitrarily.
Yeah, right. Just randomly.
Then obviously it might be 22 plus 2 other, really solid assets. Those can change depending on what that first round pick looks like. But if you're Cleveland, part of this game, as we have learned with the Luka trade, is not just what you believe, but also part of it is like, can you sell it to your fans? If you don't get a first round pick back from Myles Garrett, the best thing to happen to your franchise in 25 years, I don't know what. I truly don't know what your message would be. It would be after, by the way, last week, their GM, Andrew Berry, said on the record, like, if somebody offered me 2-1, I'm telling them, no way. Like, it's going to be a hefty, hefty price if we ever get to the point where they say, yep, it's time to do this.
Wow. Yeah, we'll see what it'll ultimately take. If I was the Browns, I might be throwing in some thirds and some fourths and some fifths along with Myles Garrett just so I can drive up what will be, a couple of firsts and a second, because then you can really, for Myles Garrett, we got 2 firsts and 2 second rounders for Myles Garrett. It's like we don't have to say that we gave up, a couple of thirds and a couple of fourths to really increase the pot there. It's just, hey, we got 2 firsts and 2 seconds for him. If that makes it go over any better, I have no idea. Field Yates is our guest from ESPN. What does this mean this weekend for the coaches, for Sirianni and for Andy Reid? If Sirianni wins, is he going to be a guy that's finally, respected and maybe taken seriously and not sort of looked at the Eagles are winning, in spite of Sirianni, which is certainly a commonly held opinion. And for Andy Reid, if he wins 3 straight and 4 of 6, how close is he, or is he at, or maybe surpassed Bill Belichick in terms of the greatest coach of all time?
Yeah, I think with Nick Sirianni, it's probably exactly how you described it, right? Like we can bury the conversations about, hey, would the Eagles be better off with somebody else? I mean, listen. You win the Super Bowl, that's it, right? That to me is the end-all, be-all. So we can probably nip all that in the bud, and some of the antics that people get frustrated by will be pardoned and forgiven, right? People don't love going for it on 4th down, stuff like that, going for 2 early in games, things of that nature, right? But you know what? He stuck by his approach, and it's at least up until this point of the season, has worked out very well for him. I think that some of the stuff like getting into it with the fans will always drive people nuts, but that's a decision that he has to make. Here's what I would say on Andy Reid is I don't have the conversation is Bill and Andy if he wins on Sunday. Like, that's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
That's where it is. Like, it's those two. I look at it more like, maybe I'm being oversimplified. I tend to think like rings are the end-all, be-all, so I think Belichick possesses the edge. But Andy's a gut, right? So, and who's to say that he can't get to 6, especially with how things are looking right now? That would be where I am at, is that like probably 2 or 1 being behind Bill Belichick, because 6-4 is notable, and the Patriots got 3 and they had a decade off in the Super Bowl, didn't get to 4. Like, it is, despite how great it is right now, it is hard to do this every single year. Part of the reason why I never take these runs for granted. So I would say that probably 2, but that gap between 2 and 1 is getting real narrow.
Last couple for you before we let you go. Matchups, and then we'll get a prediction. Matchups that you might be looking at that you think may dictate how this game goes on Sunday?
I tell you what, to me, it's Spags versus Jalen Hurts. Early in the game last week, 2 weeks ago, but 8 days ago, I should say, between the Eagles and the Commanders, right? The Commanders kind of had him a little bit off kilter, and they played good offense, but like they were able to, if they could rush the passer, they could, confuse Jalen, and if they could, pressure him a little bit, they could make things harder for him. Listen, we can debate Jalen and his hierarchy in the NFL quarterback tier. I tend to think that he's outside that top 4, which is, Patrick plus Lamar, Josh, Joe, and whatever order you want 2 through 4 to be in. But he's also, he's a really, really tough player to defend, but he has not been for much of this season like this impeccable surgical, rhythm passer.
Yeah.
If Spags can keep him, off sort of on his heels a little bit, then I think it really changes everything for this Eagles offense. Like, I'd love, if I'm the Chiefs, to force him to have to make critical throws. So the pass rush / the disguise and the packages and the pressure from Spags, to me, is amongst the biggest things to watch this upcoming weekend. And, hey, sometimes when it's the Super Bowl, you want to do your best to think of the most innovative point that nobody else has discussed. Sometimes you also want to make sure that you account for the most basic stuff, which is,
that's right.
The Commander said this, it didn't work out, but if you're the Chiefs, you better freaking tackle 26, right? I mean, he's the best playmaker amongst non-quarterbacks on either roster, and it's not close right now. That's just a fact based off of what he has done and where he's at with the peak of his powers compared to everybody else. So, if you don't figure out a Saquon Barkley plan, then you might as well just give the Eagles 30 points. So if you're the Chiefs, it is truly it's an 11-man job to bring that guy down.
Yeah. And you do have 2 of the better tackling teams that are playing this weekend. In fact, I know yards after catch is more of a, it may be a secondary deal, but yards after catch over expected, the Chiefs are first in the NFL. The Eagles are second in the NFL. Like, they are incredibly good tackling teams. So I think Saquon will still get his, but I don't think it'll be like the Saints, where I don't think they would have tackled me or you that day. when we were running. So when that was
Yeah,
big plays all over the place.
I've learned that I'm probably better at getting tackled than tackling. So probably, that's about where I land on that part of it.
Yeah, for sure. I do look forward to a conversation when we get closer to draft season about what these 4 quarterbacks in the conference championships may have done for like drafty values because Mahomes, Allen, Jaden Daniels, and Jalen Hurts, like so much of their negativities and their red flags were profiled and emphasized on draft day and in the draft sort of process. And then those guys are playing in the conference championship games, and it's like, well, in large part because of them, So that'll be be interesting to see as we get closer and closer. All right, what do you have? If you've got a prediction yet for Super Bowl Sunday?
Yeah, ESPN has us submit our predictions like minutes within the following or minutes following this 2 conference championship games. And I've decided I'm just going to stick with that. 28-25 Chiefs was my decision. And am I making this? Did they win 28-25 when they played the Eagles the last time?
It was 38-35. It's close.
38-35. Okay, so I was only 10 points off for each of them. Yeah, I guess that was a very, very, very offensive game.
Yeah.
28-25 is my pick. These 2 teams, I think, both play better defense now than they did then. Certainly, the Chiefs is dominant defense, and the Eagles is dominant defense as well. I mean, these are really. I know that the Eagles have the second best record in the NFC, but there's no mystery why these 2 teams are here. These are just 2 outstanding football teams, extremely well coached, and in an era where there's some imbalance on rosters now. You've got teams like Detroit by the end of the season because of their injuries, where the defense just couldn't hang. Like Philly can beat you with defense, they can beat you with offense. The Chiefs can beat you with defense, they can beat you with offense as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We'll see what happens. Field Yates, ESPN Field, you're the man. Appreciate it as always, brother. Looking forward to our conversation on Monday. Hopefully we were talking about how right you were on your prediction. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, man.
Well, Jake, talk to you soon, man. Enjoy the week down there in New Orleans.
Yes, we'll do. I appreciate it. There's Field Yates from ESPN. If we had a little more time, I wanted to talk to him a little bit at the beginning there about the Senior Bowl. We had some phone line issues, but we got it figured out, and thankfully we got Field on there to talk about, one, Myles Garrett asking for a trade, requesting a trade from the Cleveland Browns, and releasing a letter that sounded like he was going to forego his final year of eligibility with the University of Cleveland. So the way that it made it sound, he wrote, so this Myles Garrett came out about an hour ago. As a kid dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl. And that goal fuels me today more than ever. My love for the community of Northeast Ohio and the incredible fan base of the Cleveland Browns has made this one of the toughest decisions of my life. These past 8 years have shaped me into the man that I am today. With that being said, I've decided to forego my final year of eligibility and I've decided to enter the transfer portal. Please respect my no. While I've loved calling this city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested to be traded from the Cleveland Browns. Signed, Myles Garrett. So, Cleveland fans want 3 first-rounders. As I said to Field, is that what it's going to take? Come on. The more realistic would be a first-rounder, depending on what area of the draft that first-rounder is, to then what would be additionally accompanying said first-rounder. If it's the Chiefs and pick 32, well, then maybe it is a couple of first-rounders and something else to sweeten the pot. I don't think the Chiefs are going to be in the Myles Garrett business. They are already in the business of Creed Humphrey and Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes and maybe Trey Smith and certainly Trent McDuffie and probably George Karlaftis. Like, they are in the market for those guys. They are in the business of those players as well, and they need to supplement with more draft picks, not less, even though Myles Garrett a dominant player. But if you are a team that's battling the Chiefs, let's say the Buffalo Bills, I don't know what their cap situation would be, but if I was Buffalo, I'd be making a run for Myles Garrett. I don't want Buffalo to get Myles Garrett, I'll tell you that much. We'll see where he ends up, but he is asking for a trade, and we'll see if Cleveland obliges, if they go and actually trade him to see what they can get back. But Anthony Davis in a first-rounder seems to be the going rate of a superstar. But it's funny because before Myles Garrett had asked for a trade, my NFL comparison was Joe Burrow for Myles Garrett to the Anthony Davis and Luka Doncic trade. Like, I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals are going to do that. because that would be dumb. They're not going to do that. But still, that would sort of feel like what it would be. But Myles Garrett now asking for a trade, and it could be, could be power shifting in the NFL depending on where he goes. If he goes to the NFC, hey, great, that's awesome. If he goes to the NFC, it might be to a team that plays in the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs may end up losing to him because they have Myles Garrett. Who knows? Right now, it's fine him being on the Cleveland Browns, just like it would have been fine if Saquon Barkley was on the New York Giants, because who would the Chiefs be playing right now? Would they be playing the Commanders right now if Saquon was a Giant? Like, would it be Commanders and Chiefs? And wonder what the line would be on that one, but certainly wouldn't be 1.5 as it is right now. So we'll see. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling more zone next. 1 o'clock. Our coverage here on Radio Row in New Orleans, presented by the CW Farm and Ranch Venue, Adams Toyota Lee Summit, Made in KC, and McGregor's Butcher and Bistro. Thank you to Field Yates joining us in the previous segment. He's got the Chiefs 28-25 winning against the Eagles and capping off the three-peat for the first time in NFL history. The Chiefs have already done two things that has never been done in NFL history, or the most of in NFL history. They have made it to the third straight Super Bowl after winning the first two, only team to have ever done that, and 17 playoff wins, the most in a 7-season span in NFL history, going back to 2018 for the Chiefs, 17 wins in the postseason. That's the most ever in a 7-season span. So they have already done a couple of things by winning against the Bills last weekend, and now they have an opportunity to do something that has never been done and, I don't know, may never be equaled in the NFL because of how difficult it is to even win one, let alone win two, and then to have the team intact the way that it was. As we said at the beginning of this year, I don't know if a team will ever three-peat, but I don't know that a team will ever have as good of a chance to three-peat as the Chiefs. This was before, we knew about the one seed. This was, week 3 or 4 early on when we were having our conversations with Adam Teicher, that just looking at everybody returning typically over those 3 years, you would have coaches, GMs, players all plucked and picked apart, and yet this team continues with their continuity year after year with the coaching staff for some reason. And the main players continue to be here and playing at a high level and healthy, which is good. I mean, yes, the Chiefs this year battled injuries, but they didn't battle injuries to Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones. You know what I mean? They didn't battle injuries to Trent McDuffie. Rashee Rice hurts, but it wasn't, Travis Kelce that went down. There are areas, if you get ravaged by injury, that you just simply cannot overcome, like the Detroit Lions. Like at some point, that defense just had to give. And even with the defense as ravaged as injuries as they were, it still took Goff 5 interceptions or 5 turnovers and 4 interceptions, whatever it was, against the Commanders for them to lose in the divisional round. And if they win that game, who knows? Maybe we're talking about Chiefs and Lions. And by the way, if we were talking Chiefs and Lions, then there would be no question about who the country is rooting for. Because America, the world, would be rooting for the Lions against the Chiefs. But it is a little more difficult to say I'm rooting against the Chiefs, which means you're rooting for the Eagles? Like you're rooting for Philly? Like is that the plucky underdog in this whole thing?
Have you seen their fans on social media after wins?
Right? Yes. It makes it a lot more difficult to be like, oh, heck yeah, anybody but the Chiefs. It's the Eagles.
And they got their Super Bowl. Like they got their Super Bowl with a really nice story with a backup QB, and
they've won a couple Super Bowls.
They
You know
have
what I mean? They won
of two guys that aren't even with the organization outside
100%.
of their stadium right now.
Yeah, that's right. They got a Vermeil Super Bowl. They got a Peterson Super Bowl, and they were here just a couple of years ago against the Chiefs, and maybe that's part of sort of less enthusiastic, is because it's another rematch with the Chiefs versus somebody that they had already beaten in the Super Bowl. But like, I don't know what the percentage is going to be, but I know that the majority of America is going to be rooting for the Eagles to bring down the Kansas City Chiefs, but it does make it more difficult. If it was the Commanders, like Commanders, Lions, whatever, if it was one of those teams, it would be so easy for the rest of the country, the world, the NFL world to root against the Kansas City Chiefs. But it makes it a little more difficult when it's the Philadelphia Eagles. But yeah, and so, look, we'll see what happens, coming up on Sunday, but Field Yates has the Chiefs winning 28-25 and wrapping up the three-peat. And one of the things that, I wanted to get into and talk about with him, and we'll talk about it with Cynthia this week and other guests that we have throughout the week, and that is one thing that we're learning from Spags. Like we give credit to Spags. I spent a couple days talking about that last week, that it's not just Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Brett Veach that we have to include. And I'm not saying that other people aren't doing it, and I am. No, I haven't been doing it. But it's Brett Veach, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Steve Spagnuolo. Those are the main players, the guys, the head coach, the quarterback, the defensive coordinator, the GM, as to this dynasty of 17 wins and 7 seasons in the postseason, and a chance to go for 3 Super Bowls in a row, 4 in 6 seasons. But the one thing that's sort of interesting is Spags said something a few years ago of having the chalk last. Of like, he might have been talking about Justin Reid and Justin Reid helping him have the chalk last. So when you're making adjustments and then audibles back and forth, and then audible to this and you audible to that, who's got the chalk last would have the advantage. Like he said that, and that was really interesting. But against the Bills, like we almost look at defense as like, does the defense react to what the offense is doing? So the offense comes out in 12 personnel, okay, then the defense matches personnel. The offense comes out in 11, okay, the defense is going to match personnel. The offense comes out in a heavy with an extra offensive lineman like the Bills do, okay, then the defense is going to match that personnel. And it's not really the other way around. Like the defense isn't going to come out in, light packages and light box, and then the offense is like, oh no, what do we do now? No, then the offense is like, all right, we're going to run it down your throat then, if you're good enough to do that. Sometimes you can dictate sort of the game plan for the other team based on the defense, but it might be based on matchup driven and certain, game plans. But the one thing that we see with Spags is, I think Spags is a guy that, he can force the issue. Like, he can be the one that's like, all right, how do the Eagles defend Patrick Mahomes? Okay, how do the Chiefs defend the Eagles' offense? But the flip side of it is, okay, what do the Eagles do against the Chiefs' defense? How do the Eagles counter what Steve Spagnuolo wants to do? Because he was able to force the issue against the Bills a number of times. Like setting up that 4th and 5 blitz. He's the one that forced the issue. He hadn't shown it all game. Looked like he was setting it up throughout the entire game. And at the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, he goes and deploys that. And Josh Allen and the Bills weren't ready. The offensive line wasn't ready for it. Josh Allen wasn't ready for it. They almost made a miraculous play, but almost only counts in, horseshoes, hand grenades, and certainly doesn't count in football, because if it did, the Buffalo Bills would have a Super Bowl by now. But they don't. And they haven't gone to the Super Bowl with Josh Allen because almost doesn't count, and they almost made an amazing play. But you know why they didn't? Is because the Chiefs were the ones that forced the issue there. And it's an interesting dichotomy with Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts and the quarterbacks that made the conference championship game, so these 4 quarterbacks that were in the conference championship game, they were all in the top 7 in EPA versus the blitz. That includes Jalen Hurts. But the dichotomy with Jalen Hurts that's interesting is while he's top 7 in EPA per drop back versus the blitz, when pressured this year, he's 37 of 37 in EPA per attempt of all quarterbacks. 37 out of 37 in success rate. 33 out of 37 in sack rate. 32 of 37 in yards per attempt. And last year he was top 10 in so many different stats like that. So if you're getting there without blitzing him, Jalen Hurts is I'm trying to think of any of Tommy Cutlets. I was going to go Sam Darnold. No, he's been better. Jimmy Garoppolo, he went to a Super Bowl. He's Daniel Jones. You know what? That's what he is. He's Daniel Jones. He's Will Levis. When you get pressure without blitzing him. Blitz him, well, then he's taking advantage of mismatches that are there, whether that be Dallas Goedert or A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. Like, he's got people to throw to, or Saquon Barkley or Kenneth Gainwell out of the backfield. Like, he's got guys to get the ball to. And so, he can attack from that standpoint. Can the Chiefs put pressure on Jalen Hurts without having to blitz a bunch of guys? And if they do, what do they do if they're blitzing against Jalen Hurts, who's been pretty good? He hasn't been as good as Patrick Mahomes against the blitz, because Patrick Mahomes traditionally is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL against the blitz. But Jalen Hurts is not the same quarterback he was 2 years ago. He's injured. He's got the knee injury, and he's not as explosive as he was. He's good enough. He can run. He's still incredibly hard to bring down. He's still a big-bodied dude, but he's not that same dude that he was a couple of years ago. He still has some of his issues. He still has some of his strengths that are there, and it's a matter of, can you stop Saquon Barkley? So a couple of things. Can you stop Saquon Barkley without bringing everybody into the box? Can you pressure Jalen Hurts without blitzing from a number of different places? And it is a pretty good offensive line. Now, they have a Cam Jurgens center who's battling a back injury, and you've got Landon Dickerson who's battling a knee injury. And those guys played half the game each against the Commanders. Are they healthy for this game? Well, they've had a couple of weeks off, so maybe they are. And we'll see what they look like in this matchup. But the regression that's happened this year for Jalen Hurts when he's pressured has been interesting. Blitzing him hasn't exactly made him look like Daniel Jones all the time. So 913-912-4810. We talked a lot of college basketball at the beginning of the show. KU getting ready for Iowa State tonight. That tip-off at 8 o'clock, 6:30 is when our coverage starts. Half-hour, bonus hour after the program wraps up later on today. K-State in action tomorrow night as they will be taking on Arizona State and trying to build off of this 3-game winning streak that they are on and going to Iowa State and getting a win. And we spent a good amount of time talking about Kansas State earlier today and just what we've seen from this team and how they have turned things around seemingly, not necessarily overnight, but man, it's felt like that. They take care of West Virginia by 13, they take care of Oklahoma State by 30, and then they go to Iowa State and win by 20 points. Just a dominant effort. And so we talked a lot of college basketball in the first hour with KU and their collapse against Baylor and Mizzou's steady continued play throughout the season. And what they've been able to do, and going to Mississippi State and getting that win over the Bulldogs by 20 points and just simply dominating there. So talked a lot about that, and then of course the trade, Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis in a first rounder that has the entire sports, world. I don't know if people in Portugal are going crazy over it. I'm not sure, but certainly the sports landscape across the United States going crazy and wondering what is going on, because the Lakers get Luka Doncic and they make a trade for the next decade. Maybe not this year, because I'm not sure who's going to play defense. They're going to have to win like 150 to 140 every game, and the Mavericks feel like they're making a trade more for now, but they're trading away a generational top 5 talent who's 25 years old right before you're going to have to pay him a supermax deal. But now are you saying you traded him because you didn't want to pay him the money? Are you trading him because you're talking about culture this and culture that? And, well, he's out of shape. All right, so you got to trade him for Anthony Davis, and all you can get is Anthony Davis in a first rounder. You can't get and first-round picks are not like in the NBA, are not like the NFL, so it's much, much different. You get 5 first-rounders from the Lakers. Like, what's that going to do? You get a bunch of guys that are going to be in the late first round. Like, who cares? But lottery picks, okay, well, that might be a little bit different. Non-protected lottery picks might be a little bit different. But NBA first rounders aren't that big of a deal. So it's just Luka for Anthony Davis, and that's unbelievably cheap to trade a 25-year-old for an often injured guy who's over 30. In Anthony Davis. Having a great year, plays phenomenal defense, and that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to add a defender. They got it, but you lose Luka. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling. Mick Schaefer will join us at 1 o'clock. More Zone next. Have you played Pick 6 from DraftKings? Well, if you haven't, you better get on it, because it is Super Bowl 59, the last time to play NFL Pick 6 this season. And as the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, DraftKings does fantasy sports like no one else. You play for better payouts on Pick 6. Super easy to get started. You select 2 or more players, choose if they'll have more or less of a stat like touchdowns, yardage, sacks, and more. DraftKings making it even sweeter for first-timers, because new Pick 6 customers play $5. You're going to get $59 in Pick 6 credits. You win more cash on Pick 6. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code 810WHB. That's code 810WHB for new customers to play $5 and get $59 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Men, this is Jeff for Heartland Men's Health. The one you love is the light of your life. And if you're like most of us, you want to do whatever you can to nurture your relationship. But if you're suffering with erectile dysfunction, you know the impacts the condition is likely having on you and your partner. ED is a relationship destroyer. It can contribute to depression, distancing, conflicts, and even breakups and divorce. And what's so disturbing about this is that most men who suffer with ED can be successfully treated, but a lot of guys don't seek treatment.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I like this one. 913-912-4810 says, think about the Garrett trade this way. If the Chiefs trade for Garrett, they can just keep Joe Thuney as a starting left tackle and be totally fine. Yeah, that is the one game that Joe Thuney did not perform
so
well. He did not perform well
What a great
against
tag.
Myles Garrett. Yeah, you get Joe Thuney at left tackle and Myles Garrett not on the schedule. Boom, done. Joe Thuney is your left tackle. You are fine.
That's like a monopoly in business almost, like completely, cornering the orange juice market, if you will. the Duke and Duke method.
Yeah, that's right. Tex says, if the Chiefs were going to re-sign Trey Smith, would they have already done it, or is this the better plan since he's only making six-rounder money? No, I don't think they if it didn't work out with Creed, if they couldn't get something done with Creed, I think maybe that might have been the next go-around was with Trey Smith. I'm not sure. Maybe they offered Trey Smith the same contract that Creed Humphrey got, and maybe Trey Smith wants a little bit more because the guard market is more expensive than the center market. But yeah, I think they definitely want to re-sign Trey Smith. I think they will try. It's just a matter of what happens and how much does he cost. Because if he wants top-of-the-market guard money, then good for him, man. If he wants it, then go and get it. Because, again, like you said, Texter, that, he's making sixth-round money. And, it's not like Creed Humphrey was making second-round money. Okay? And the best center in the NFL. Trey Smith is a really, really good guard. He's not the best guard in the NFL. He's a good guard. And there's only one center on the field. So you got the best player at a position that's the only one, and he's working in concert with the quarterback. Yeah, he's probably going to get top of the market money, and that's what the Chiefs were able to do. But I think they want to sign Trey Smith, but a matter of can they sign Trey Smith? Because you'd also want to be able to take care of your left tackle for the rest, for the next 3, 4, 5 years. Like, figure out that spot. And if you do that, is that going to take draft picks? Is that going to take draft picks and salary cap space to trade and then sign somebody that might be coming up for a contract extension or something like that, or the team doesn't want to pay or they're not ready to win right now? We'll see. Tex says Dickerson and Juergens being hurt could be an issue on the interior of their line. Yeah, it could. I mean, they played well against the Commanders even when they were trying to figure that stuff out. And the Commanders, the interior of their defensive line is really the strength of their team with Payne and Allen. Obviously, Chris Jones is better than those players, but they held up pretty decently with that. So Tex says that trade is what a pro sports being rigged looks like. What a pro sport being rigged looks like, yeah. Maybe, yeah. I mean, no. It's the refs here. It's the refs. I do wonder how much that whole conversation will permeate this week. Like, I don't know. I did a little walking around while A New Day was on, and Todd Lebo hanging out here with SSJ this morning. So I was walking around, and trying to eavesdrop on the conversations, and I didn't really hear much of conversation about that. Like, I was trying to listen in when people were like, all right, you getting excited for the Super Bowl, man? What are you thinking about this matchup, Eagles and Chiefs? Just to see if there's going to be what is going to be the refs. It's all about the refs for the Chiefs. That's the only way they bet. I haven't heard that yet, but we'll see. We haven't had many guests walking around here yet, so we'll see what they may say, but it'll be interesting. I do find it fascinating. Myles Garrett puts out the press release saying that he wants to be traded before he comes to Radio Row. Like, he's heading to New Orleans tomorrow, and then he's doing his car wash on Wednesday all over the country around Radio Row. Obviously, we're going to try to get him as well. So we are doing what we can to land Myles Garrett, just as the Chiefs are. Chiefs are doing what they can to land Myles Garrett, and we're doing what we can to land Myles Garrett. I think we may have a better chance of doing that because we don't have to trade him anything except his time, I guess. But he's already traded that ahead of time. So it's just a matter of where he goes in that particular time. But my first thought when heard about Myles Garrett asking for a trade, my first thought was not the Chiefs. My first thought was, please don't let Buffalo make the trade. I don't want Buffalo to make the trade for him, because get him out of the AFC, man. Send him somewhere else,
I mean, if the Browns are smart, that's what they'll do. But then again, I'm saying, that's a big
Browns.
if. It's a massive if. So.
Yeah, if the Browns were smart, they wouldn't have traded and sold their soul for Deshaun Watson.
So it means he's going to the Ravens. That seems like a Browns move would do in the division.
Yeah, right. Man, would the Ravens be? I don't know. The Ravens. I don't. have all of the cap space in front
No,
of me right now as
I'm
to what
just
it would
joking.
take. But
Like,
I know what you're saying. Yeah. Just like that's what it would be, Pittsburgh or something. Yeah, Pittsburgh needs to spend more money on their defense. That would be perfect.
Could you
It'd be a
imagine?
perfect trade. Pittsburgh gets, you know what? It's T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett.
Would a
bookend
pass
and
even get off
Highsmith
in Pittsburgh? I mean, my good. Unless you do it in 2 seconds, basically. So.
Yeah, right. You'd have to a quick passing game. Now, they would have to win games 10-7 if they bring on more money on the defensive side. But, hey, could be worth it. I don't know. Mick Schaefer next. Radio Row in New Orleans. Our coverage presented by Xfinity, Shamrock Roofing and Construction, the Big Biscuit, and Subaru of Olathe. And we'll see who will be stopping by over the next 4 days. We know who's stopping by right now. It's Mick Schaefer. There he is.
That's what you came to New Orleans for, is to get an interview with me.
Yeah, it's like, where can we possibly find? If we're going to have Mick Schaefer on the show on a Monday, we've got to follow him where he's going. Where are you going? New Orleans? Then we will go to New Orleans.
There.
We chase the story. Where's the story? 810's there. If Mick Schaefer is somewhere, that means the story is there. I don't know what's going on in New Orleans, but I know Mick is here, so we'll find it. I'll be searching once we get off the air at 2 o'clock. I'm going to look around, try to find, sort of sift through all of these NFL posters and everything of like Hurts and Saquon and Patrick Mahomes and Pacheco and stuff like that that's up here. I'll figure out when I get through all of that stuff to see what the story is, why you're here.
Coincidence, the Chiefs arrived as well. I got here first. I was here Saturday. They got here Sunday.
Were you the welcoming committee?
I was part of it.
Yeah.
It was. We walked in and it's green and white all over the airport.
Yeah.
Now we're in the old airport, the Ghost Airport. They have a new airport as well. It's like 5 years old. So we walk in the old terminal. That's where they brought in the charter flights, which makes sense. And all green and white, everything green and white. I'm like, what are we doing? And they're like, that's our colors for the airport, and they're passionate about the colors because they kept them.
Yeah,
it's like it's Chiefs. And they're like, yeah. They had some other Chiefs banners and stuff like that, but a lot of green.
Yeah, we flew into the new side of the airport, and we were on the other side of the Chiefs charter. They had already unloaded, but when we got there, we landed
what time
at like
did
4
you land?
o'clock.
They landed exactly at 4 o'clock.
So I guess then it wasn't. So we left at 2. So maybe like 4:15, something like that.
Yeah.
But they had already unloaded, and we were driving.
Yeah, they were right there.
We were taxiing. I wasn't driving. We were taxiing to the and like So I took a picture of the other side of the plane.
Yeah.
I didn't tweet it out because I didn't feel like that was very interesting.
They didn't walk off that side.
Yeah, I just took a picture of this. Like, look at that. You know what? They're showing how much of a team they are. They put United on their plane.
They are. Yes.
Right on the side of their plane. They said, "We are a team. We are united for this one."
It's a joint effort. They all painted it and everything.
They came together. It was really cool of them to do that. That just gives me a lot of faith that this team's going to get it together because they're thinking about being a team. They're united.
They're united. I don't know what. Yeah. I don't know why the Eagles painted Delta on their airplane.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just simply weird. Maybe it's like the triangle of like, so it's like
we're close to the
Hurts,
Mississippi
Saquon.
Delta, right?
That's what it's got to be.
It's got to be.
So it feels like they're just saying it's about 3 different people.
They knew where they were going. The Eagles pilot, his flag said, "Go Eagles."
Okay.
GEAUX. Go, because that's the
I
Cajun
thought
way,
maybe it was
right?
go ELGSES.
No, but when it landed, I was like, "Land, Eagles, land!" Stop laughing.
No, look, man, I'm a dad now.
Yeah, I know,
so not only do you tell them, you have to laugh at them.
Yeah, you do.
It's a part of the job. I signed a contract. Once my son was born, they were like, cut here and sign here. Right? Cut and sign. There we go. you better cut it out.
Cut
you know
it
what I mean?
out.
All right, I've already signed. Okay, so there we go. I'm stuck now. I have to do this. No, that was that was pretty good. I like that one. I'd like to steal it and say
You
that
can.
I thought of it. It was me. Totally me. Mick Schaefer did not say
Nobody's
that.
listening. You can,
Yeah.
say it.
How was the drive, though? I know how the flight was. It was about an hour and a half.
Rub it in.
About an hour and a half. How was the drive?
It was as good as a 13-and-a-half-hour drive could go.
Okay.
Chase and I switched up about 3 hours at a time. Not much conversation. When he was driving, I was sleeping. We both brought pillows. We both knew the score. When I was driving, he was sleeping.
Good.
We were our own DJs. Whenever you're driving, you got to listen to. I learned that Chase doesn't like country music at all. He learned that I love just to eat nonstop on the road.
Nice.
Doesn't matter if I'm
constantly.
on a diet. It doesn't matter when you're traveling.
Road trips and movie theaters for some reason.
Same.
At
the calories disappear.
If I sit at home and watch a movie, I'm probably not snacking. If I go to a movie theater, it's like I've got to have. I've got to be
have
eating
the chocolate. I
got
big old
M&Ms and
cherry Coke.
popcorns together. Cherry Coke, 100%, the biggest one. Halfway through, got to go get a refill when I feel like it's kind of at a dead spot in the movie. Constantly. Then when I'm on the road, I got to have like some Reese's Pieces and some other things, just constantly. And then when I'm like driving to like my brother's house, could be like 40 minutes away. I'm like, I'm good. Why would I need to take a snack? It's only a 40-minute drive. That's not a big deal.
So Chase has a lot of equipment, way too much if you ask me. So we get there, and I have the biggest suitcase the Schaefer's own. and I have a big old hanging bag. He's like, oh, gosh. So we get that in there. And I'm like, well, there's more. And I have the biggest cooler that I have. I break that out. I have a box full of food and crackers and snacks. And then my backpack as well, which rode between my legs the whole way there because we just didn't have room in the back.
Did Chase partake in the snacking that you presented?
A little bit though. But he's slight of build.
He is. He doesn't look like he would be a snacker.
I had dessert last night. I got 2 spoons. He didn't even use his.
You just ate both of them.
Ate it all.
You're a lady and the tramp, but just one of the. You were either the lady or the tramp. You met right in the middle with the spoons, just for yourself.
Both. I kissed myself.
It was great. That's awesome, man. That's
good.
Cool.
Good drive. We got down here
snacks?
Saturday night.
What were the snacks?
So I have the Frito scoops, of course. I've got some potato chips, a big old family-size bag.
Yeah.
We got the crackers, the Cheez-Its, the white Cheez-Its. Okay. I have M&M's. Got to have your chocolate as well. Yep. A few other things, and of course, these didn't partake till we got to the room, but Boulevard Wheat. Those are the room beers.
Makes sense.
And then some vanilla whiskey to mix with Coke Zero and Sprite Zero. It is a whole bar up in my room. And they knew I was coming. I got the handicapped room, so it is way bigger.
Yeah.
And so I didn't ask for it, but I'm like, I'm going to take advantage of this.
Yeah, so you can have more snacks and beer in there because you probably might have some issues walking after you partake in that. But I have found like the last couple of trips we have taken, I have been big into the frosted animal cookies, the animal crackers. The frosted with
Not
the animal.
The frosted. I like the iced, man. Wait. Which is
the
the
iced,
one?
I guess.
Which is the one? They're covered in all the icing. Or
yes,
that one. Yeah, with the sprinkles on it.
The sprinkles on it. Yes, I have been killing those.
Those are amazing.
And I should be smart enough to buy like a big ass bag from like Costco before we go. But I end up just buying like 3 when we stop to get gas, and those are probably twice as much as what the big ass bag would have been.
They do that at QT right next to the coffee. You get the coffee, you turn around, you find your lid, you look up, they're staring you right in the face.
Yep.
And it's like $2.99 for a little bag, and it's a little bag. Again, those aren't going to count towards your calories. Your body knows that.
Right, exactly. It's the smaller. If it's in a smaller bag, the calories don't count. The bigger bag, like your family-sized potato chips, every one of those calories count. I have been on a kick with those lately.
Really good.
I mean, it's unbelievable, man. Typically, I'm just Reese's Pieces guy or some other things, but I'm like, you know what? These animal crackers get that full frosting all the way around, get that full glaze and the little sprinkles on there, killing entire bags worth.
We ate at a great place, Koshan, last night. One of those places that has 8 things on the menu. That's what you deal with it, and they're all really expensive. It's like the Bear restaurant. I'm sure they have a different menu tonight. And
did you get there and go hands?
Usually I'm like, there's always chicken I can find or a burger, and there was neither. I don't like seafood, and so I texted the menu to my family.
You don't like seafood?
What should Dad? No, I don't. What should Dad get? And they're like, Dad should get out of there is what he should do. And so I found some braised brisket that I ate with some deviled egg potato salad, and it was amazing.
How about that?
We got the gumbo. It was a great $150 spent between 2 people there. Yeah.
Todd and I walked from the media center here, or Radio Row, back to our hotel, which is the Eagles Hotel.
Remember when I texted you guys to see if we wanted to hang out, and you're like, no,
we were
remember that?
I was in bed at that time. I was like, you know what? It's first night. I'm not being dumb. I'm not doing what
you didn't answer my question. You're like, well, I got an early morning tomorrow. I'm like, so do I. I didn't answer my question. You want to hang out tonight? That's what I'm asking about, Jason.
I woke up this morning to see your response. It was that much of it. I'm like, you know what? The kids aren't around. Like, I am going to sleep. This is awesome. I'm going to have a nice early night before the week of craziness. Because, I mean, the Chiefs don't start till 9 o'clock tonight. I mean, come on. And I'm not in TV.
Day.
I don't go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and wake up at noon.
It's tough to
you know what I mean?
It's
difficult there. But we're walking back, and we're trying to find a place to eat. We go to one place. We're like, oh, this is the corporation or whatever. This it's world famous. So we go there, and there's a couple of individuals hanging out outside, smoking everything. It's a small little corner spot. It's got like the metal bars on all the windows, and we get closer there, and he's like, so what do you think? And I'm like, oh, it feels a little sketch, And he's like, well, you want to go or not? I'm like, oh, it's up to you. Please say you want to leave. Oh, it's up to you. We get there, grill's closed. Bleep yes. Let's go somewhere else.
So Todd, the Independence guy, was fine going in there.
Totally fine.
Lee Summit, just the elite. You were not.
Well,
yes.
Independence roots, but that's fine.
You have Independence roots too?
Oh yeah.
Okay, you both from Independence.
My brother went to Van Horn.
Oh, okay, nice.
A
lot of people don't know that's in Independence.
Yeah,
it's one of
my
the
brothers
4
went to Van Horn.
Independence
Rick
high schools.
Sutcliffe in the house, and so we start walking back towards the hotel. We'll find something. He's like, oh, there's a place called the Red Eye Cajun cuisine, so we start walking.
You shouldn't have to look long in this town.
Right, so we're walking in the road. We're like, oh, look at those. There's red lights right there. Like, oh, it's the red eye. We get there, permanently closed, just boarded up. We're like, all right, well, we're not going to eat there. So we're like, all right, well, you know what? Let's just go to Drago's because that's where Lane Johnson went. And so we're like, it's in our hotel. We'll just go to Drago's. It's not that expensive. We didn't want to have like a meal on the company tab yet. We'll wait for other people to show up so then we can do it with them and then we feel better about it because they're the ones saying, hey, we should go do this. Like, cool.
They buy my coffee. They buy my $150 Cochon.
Cochon. So then we're walking. We find a little dive place right across from Peyton Manning's sports bar, the Manning Sports Bar. You would think we would have gone to the Manning Sports Bar, but we didn't. We didn't want to go to a sports bar, so we find this little place. We go in there. Po' boy sandwiches are awesome. The beers. Todd had a beer.
An Abita.
It was cheaper than the Coke that I had.
That's what I heard.
$1.50 beer.
That's what I heard.
An entire bottle of beer for $1.50. And Todd was like, what is this? Am I back in like 95? Is this 96? Where am I at right now? Like my Coke, it was a big Coke, but it was more expensive than the beer. It was like $1.50 beer. The nicer beers are $3.
That's a sign.
So if you really want to go all out, you got to pay $3 for that bottle of beer.
God in New Orleans and the gods of New Orleans want you to start drinking, Jason.
Apparently, yes. They're like, you don't want to spend all that money on Coke. No. Just have a little, have some beer here. Or have an IPA.
It's better for you. Beer is.
Yes, it's much better for you. You know what I mean? It's all good. Yeah. So we the food was good and it wasn't as expensive because he had like 8 beers. Once he saw the price, then he was like, I'm going all out. I'm going all out.
We walked right around the corner of our hotel, and bam, there's Emerald's. That's all Andy Reid was talking about on Thursday. Yeah. It's his favorite restaurant down there. I went back to the kitchen, and the chef was like, I'm going to start you in the ocean and go to the mountain. And
so you guys did a story?
We did not. Cool. We were like, looked in there, and we're like, we did not bring clothes. I brought 3 to 4 suits. And I don't think those are nice enough to get in there to that place.
I thought maybe you would be able to do a story on Andy Reid loving this place, and you guys brought Andy Reid back here. You showed him everything. You went through the whole kit and caboodle.
I'm sure had we gone through like 3 PR people,
right.
The camera going in a place it's a game changer. So we're like, no, we're good. We shot a stand up outside of it. It's on the sidewalk. They can't kick us off. So
just walk in and just say yes, chef, and hands, and you'll fit right in.
I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, cool. I've got a Michelin star. It's all good. Oh, cool. I got a Goodyear star. What's your point? It's like everybody's got a star around here. Okay, you guys drove here on 4 tires. It doesn't matter what it is. We came here on a plane. It doesn't matter how you get here as long as you're here. These 2 teams took different routes to get here, you know what I mean? But they're here. That's all that matters. And Mick Schaefer is here from KSHB 41 as well. Missouri is now officially in the top 15 of the college basketball.
Is that
AP
a thing? Is that
rankings.
A threshold top 15? I thought top 25 is the deal.
I just named
top
it.
10 is a thing.
I just said that because they are in the top 15. If they were number 16, I'd say they're officially in the top 16.
Yeah.
But they're number 15. KU's officially in the top 16.
I think I have Mizzou at 14 and KU at 16. Is that what it is?
KU's at 16, Mizzou's at 15.
Okay, I have Mizzou one ahead then.
Yep. Kentucky is number 14.
It's so hard voting this dumb poll, man.
Those are the blue bloods of every. You think Kentucky, Mizzou, KU, UK, MUKU. When you think blue blood basketball, those are the 3 that come to mind for me. Actually, for me in my neighborhood, those are the 3. Wife, UK, me, Mizzou, everybody else in our neighborhood, KU. Yeah. So it's fun. So great when we moved to the neighborhood, one of our good friends now across the street, big KU fans, and it's like, introducing ourselves, like, he's like, wait a minute, you're a Missouri guy. I'm like, I'm not really into the rivalry. I root for Missouri, but it's fine. And our neighbors that had lived across the street from him had transplanted from North Carolina, and he's a Duke fan, or he's North Carolina, she's Duke. And then I'm Missouri, and I'm like, oh, it's all good. My wife's a Kentucky fan. He's like, what the hell is going on this street? There are 5 houses on this cul-de-sac, and I got North Carolina, Duke, Mizzou, and
all
Kentucky.
The blue bloods.
This is Kansas. Why am I having to deal with all 4 of these teams that I cannot stand that are here in my neighborhood? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Sorry, but yeah, Kentucky 14, Mizzou 15, KU 16.
Every Mizzou fan that I know was texting me, you better have Mizzou ahead of KU. I'm like, I'm going to do it, but I mean, there's a lot. I think it was 11 and 20 going in, so there's a big gap that they covered. They're now ahead of KU, but there's so many weird things. Like, so many teams go 1-1, and like, you want to punish them, but you can't because everybody behind them went 1-1 or 0-2, and so like I think I had Florida at 4 and Tennessee at 8. and Tennessee sandblasted Florida last week.
Them.
So I'm like, that's too close. I need to put Tennessee ahead. But Tennessee lost a game last week. So
Tennessee jumped Florida. Tennessee's Florida's 6.
Yeah, I put Tennessee up to 6, even though they went 1-1. They moved up 2. And I punished Florida for losing to Tennessee, which shouldn't, but I had to move them back to 7 just to get that right. I'm like, oh, gosh, it's so
Have you gotten
so
emails from fans?
All the time.
Really?
I've learned that Illinois basketball fans are, they are entitled for some reason. I don't know.
They're number 23.
They're
in the top 23.
I haven't had them ranked the last 3 or 4 weeks, and they've let me know about it. I'm like, you're going 1-1. You're losing. I'm like, you're 15-7. What are you owed here? What is it? They did.
They win last
because
night.
But they lost.
State, right?
Yes, was that it? But then they lost to Nebraska in overtime. And so I'm like, you're 15. What are you owed? And they're like, well, we're this in Ken Palm. I'm like, well, Gonzaga's like 9 in Ken Palm. Okay, don't throw that at me. Yeah. They're like, well, we have a top 3 pick, which I don't think he's going to be a top 3 pick. I'm like,
but what does that even matter?
I know Rutgers got 2 top 3 picks.
What does it matter?
What are we doing here? We're just cheering. And so I'm like, you know what? I was like this as a fan. I was like, well, Oklahoma State is beating OU. Why aren't they behind? There's a million other factors.
Yes.
It can't just be head-to-head. Transitive property left November 15th. Okay, in college basketball. That's when you had to stop doing this beat this team.
But also not only transitive property, also head-to-head doesn't mean you're a better team. Because the Raiders beat the Chiefs on Christmas Day last year.
Exactly.
Raiders are not better than the Chiefs.
They won that head-to-head game. It's easier to do in football. There's less teams, there's less games, and it's easier to do. But you still can't do it in football. And so Chase was getting we're getting a nightcap in the room last night. I didn't talk at all because I was writing everything down. It took about an hour or so to get my top 25 in, and afterward I'm like, oh God, who's gonna yell at me this week? Duke fans didn't like me forever. I had him at 6 for a while instead of like 4.
How could you possibly have him at 6?
The humanity.
Hey, everybody, look at this is Mick Schaefer in Kansas. Of course, he's got KU ranked that high.
But I try to engage everybody and be like, okay, this is my thinking here. This is my thinking here.
Yeah. Do you really?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 or 3 emails or tweets a week. It's not it's not a lot.
I would just delete them.
Yeah.
It's like don't even open them up.
Well, and then I thought Drake has been coming on. They had the 2 losses. Yeah, Jason Justice. They're 20-2, and I had a Drake fan respectfully email me. I was like, hey, they're in this week. And then I started looking at it like, there's a lot of teams more deserving than Drake. And so I didn't get them. I had them in the poll at one point. And I'm like, I can't just quad 1 wins and just schedule-wise hurting you right. I think they're a really good team and really good players and a team. I mean, they beat Vandy, right? That Vandy, how good is that Vandy win looking? And some other teams, but I can't ignore some.
How many in a row does K-State have to win before you put them in your top 25?
My son who goes to K-State texts me. He's
like, got Arizona State tomorrow.
We beat
Arizona
KU
Saturday,
and KU will be in. I'm like, are you above 500 at that point, son?
they would be 13-11 at that point.
Yeah, I'm like, not yet.
If they win the next 3, Arizona State tomorrow night on the road, and then back-to-back home games, KU, Arizona. So
is Arizona in the poll now?
Arizona is
them.
number 20.
They're one of those teams that's a lot of talent, obviously, just kind of underachieved earlier in the year, but now they're coming on. So, yeah, I put them in.
Yep. The next 3 games for tomorrow night will be interesting for K-State just to continue doing what they've been doing and not have a letdown to get that done. If they take care of business, look at that. Look at the KCSN folks.
Oh, my gosh. What are you doing
KCSN
here?
Folks. Hey, you know her. She looks so familiar. Did she do TV ever?
We didn't even send her to a Super Bowl when she was with us.
Haley Lewis, everybody, is walking by. So she has to leave KSHB so she can go cover a Super Bowl. I mean, goodness.
So sorry, wasn't my call, Haley. It wasn't my call.
Sure. Didn't you just say Haley's here? She would have never been here if it was me. It's odd you said that. But, yeah, if with the 3 wins they've had in a row, with the West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State just a shellacking there on Saturday, Arizona State's going to be an interesting one because they had the whole end of the game with Arizona, that rivalry thing. So is Hurley and that team sort of recovered from what the end of that thing was to get ready for Kansas State? That's 4-6 and 10-11. How much do you?
I would not be surprised if they continue on this roll. One, they've got the guys. I mean, Coleman Hawkins, talent-wise, he's dripping with it.
He's been amazing.
These other guys that have kind of come on, like the Joneses for K-State. I think Doug McDaniel's kind of finding his footing, and Gasson, who's been kind of a steady guy.
Housen's knocking down threes. I mean, left and right.
Austin's killing it. And so it's funny, Jerome Tang said last week about this time after they'd won 1 or 2 in a row, he's like, it's funny, they talk about the dog days of February every year. It's like, okay, we got one more month to get through. He's like, we're not feeling that now. We kind of just went through the dog days of December and January. We feel refreshed. We are ready to attack this month. We are so looking forward to all these games because we know each one is so valuable. We are not in a position to where we can go 1-on-1 every week. We need to get each one, and we feel refreshed. We feel rejuvenated, and so I wonder, in a league like this, the Big 12, when everything's so close, in a sports where everything's so close and it matters, like playing on a random Tuesday night on the road, and how motivated are you if that can be enough, that kind of mindset to get them over the top and continue this run?
Yeah, if they take care of business tomorrow night, and then they would have KU at home and Arizona at home. And those the best 3 teams they play the rest of the way, they get them all at home. KU, Arizona, and Iowa State. Those are the best 3 teams they play. They get them all at home. After that, there's a decent drop-off from that because the next best team is BYU. And they're like
that's
number
what you
35
you want to play those ranked teams. You're going to need that with, 11 losses right now?
Yep, 11.
Already?
10 and 11. If they win out, they'd be 20 and 11.
There's a small margin for error there.
Go on a 13-game winning streak to win out, and you're in the tournament.
Maybe drop 1 or 2, but have a good Kansas City experience. And they'll look at that last 10 and just leading up to it. I think the Big 12 is good enough to where you could get in at 19 and 12 or something like that.
They've at least given themselves a lottery ticket to where you can
they got chip in a chair.
Not poker. Exactly. You don't have to win the Big 12 if you continue this. You lose a few more, then yes, you got to win the Big 12. But they've given themselves sort of a chance that you rack up a number of these wins, and you look at the 1-9 stretch, and maybe you plead to the committee that we are not the team. We are a tournament team. We are not the team in December, January that went 1-9. We are the team that is 11-1 in the Big 12 since then, or whatever the record may be at that point. I mean, it would be a tough case to make because people are going to look at the entire season and say, well, why did this team get in over that team, and look at their resume and look at their Q1 wins and Q2 and KenPom rankings and everything like that. But because if they keep winning, the KenPom's going to shoot up because Mizzou was like at 48, now they're at 23.
Yeah.
So, in a couple of weeks you keep beating these good teams. Obviously you're beating them because you're playing good basketball, so your KenPom's going to rise.
Yeah. KenPom, I mean, he's obviously so smart. I mean, there's some flaws, I think, to his rankings.
In these 3 games, K-State has gone from 96 to 68. In these 3 games. So that's the difference it makes if you start beating some of these good teams and beating them the way that they're beating them.
Look, basically every other game from here on out, it's going to be a quad 1 game, right? So an opportunity, especially with those 3 teams you mentioned in Arizona and KU and Iowa State. There's opportunity there.
Yep. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling. We'll talk a little Radio Row and, NFL. We got the Super Bowl coming up, and our coverage continues here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. More Zone right after this. Hey, have you played Pick 6 from DraftKings? Well, you better get on it if you haven't, because it's Super Bowl 59, the last time to play. who's really, really bad at it. So Luka traded for Anthony Davis in a first, and everybody's losing their minds of, oh, my God, I cannot believe how bad this trade is.
First in like 4 years.
Yeah, right, in 2029. Adam Schefter tweets, an NFL comparison of this would be like trading Lamar Jackson for Joe Burrow.
Nope.
That's absolutely the
what are we doing?
Worst comparison I've ever heard anybody try to make for Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis.
Don't forget, it was Lamar Jackson plus Joe Burrow plus, like the streaming service for both. You have to pay like a little bit extra.
Yeah, it's a
no
Disney Plus and
commercials.
Hulu. Yeah, so Lamar Jackson for Joe Burrow plus is the NFL comparison. And my funniest would have been all of the replies to him.
Oh, I bet.
Just saying.
Well, first of all, you got to do different positions, right? You got point guard, you got 5.
Yeah, that's what I said. My comparison was
I got one.
Joe Burrow for Myles Garrett. Or Lamar Jackson for Mike Evans.
Or how
something
about,
like that.
How old's Trent Williams?
How
about Joe Burrow for Trent Williams?
Yeah.
Right? An older great, but way older, way different position. And you have one of the greats at his
a guy
position.
that you can build your franchise around.
Yes.
Hold on. You're going from Mike Evans and you're trading Lamar Jackson.
I think Myles Garrett's
we can
too
win
good.
right now. Yeah, exactly. Myles
good.
Garrett's probably too good. But hold on, Mike Evans for Lamar. Well, we're trying to win right now.
Yes.
We're going to have to pay Lamar a lot of money very soon. And we don't have to. We've avoided a tumultuous summer. Okay, which is what the GM said. We got out in front of a tumultuous summer by just getting rid of the great play. Now we don't have to decide if we're going to pay him or not. This is great, guys, because we got AD.
So the tweet, how is Jerry Jones not even the worst GM in Dallas?
That's pretty good. All right, what'd you learn, Mick?
I learned that Flea, you might like this, Todd, from Red Hot Chili Peppers, was in the movie The Outsiders.
What?
Was one of the actors in there.
Which one was he?
Was he a Soch?
Was
I
he
want
a
to say it was a bit player. I don't know if he had.
He'd be a total greaser, right?
And so I looked him up.
He was a Soch.
Michael Paul. Let's see, Michael Peter Balsary is his name. He was not only in The Outsiders. He was in Back to the Future 2, okay, and 3. He was in The Big Lebowski.
What?
He was in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He's been in a ton of stuff. Grew up in L.A., a child actor, I guess.
I learned that now, too.
Yeah? How about
That's
that?
Interesting. Wow, how about that? Dylan, what'd you learn?
So I learned that. I thought we were doing funny. That's my bad.
Nope, learn first.
He switched it up on you.
We'll start with learn. Usually we start
when
with
he started the segment.
Well, so
years
I
ago.
learned that the NBA players like to check their phones during the game.
Oh, my God.
The amount of videos that hit the internet during the Luka trade. The Suns one, most recent, is KD and Bradley Beal's reaction. KD looks like he is distraught and pissed. And I think there was even a clip of Booker saying that we need to go get Jimmy Butler as well. So
yeah. Bradley Beal looked mad, too.
He looked.
Bradley
the
Beal
whole
like,
bench
I'm
looks
pissed.
mad. The
This is
Blazers,
ridiculous.
the Portland Trailblazers, a video came out of DeAndre Ayton and Jeremiah Grant. They were pissed as well. I mean, like, everyone in the NBA was completely upset and floored by this news, and they all were checking their phones mid-game to find out as well. So
yeah,
I learned
that's
that their phones are easily accessible on the bench.
Yeah. If this was baseball, would that trade have been allowed? Right? They nix trades like that.
The NBA's nix trades, like the Chris Paul.
The NBA does too? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Chris Paul one, right?
Chris Paul to Kobe, yeah.
Chris Paul joining the Lakers to play with Kobe.
So
was,
why'd they nix that one, and why is this one
So
okay?
they said that
because neither team's good, I guess.
No, their reasoning at the time was because the NBA had a ownership stake in the Pelicans at
That's
the
right.
time, so they
that's what it
actually
was.
had a say in the trade. But I don't know. That still seems ridiculous to let this trade go through, but that one wasn't.
Yeah. I like when people are like, hey, Mark Cuban, did you have a say in this? He's like, yeah, last year I sold the team. Like, I'm a minority owner now. I own like 10% of the team. What are you guys asking me for? Like, I'm not the majority owner anymore. Ask the people that own the team.
Yes, I had a say, but they didn't care. Didn't count.
They didn't care. Yes, you see me at
12%.
games. Like, I'm still a fan. I'll go to games, but I sold my my stake in the team. Like, I'm not the majority owner anymore. Funniest, we'll start with Mick on this one.
Funniest, I took my dog to the vet, and our dog's getting pretty old. Sunny, she's a great dog, great family dog. We're pretty sure she's deaf, and so I asked the vet. I'm like, hey, pretty sure she's deaf. What kind of test do you have for that? He goes. Just collapses, lands. hands as loud as possible. I was startled. My dog didn't move her head whatsoever. My dog's deaf.
And the doctor
by
said
the Ultra 2025 deaf test they have for animals.
Didn't just snap next to the ear, no, just a big clap.
Big old claps. I jumped out of my shoes, and my dog is deaf.
Oh my
Didn't
gosh,
move.
that's unbelievable. That is.
I'm like, do I owe you for that?
Very scientific.
That'll be $99.
What do they do for cats? Because I feel like cats wouldn't look regardless.
Oh, cats. Well, like cat might be deaf, might just be being a jerk right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna. I could look, but it's just not even worth my time right now. Like, do you have a treat and you're clapping? You're not. You don't have a treat. You're not clapping. I'm fine. I'm just gonna sit right here. Oh my God, that is a great way of checking if it. Why didn't you guys just do that at home?
We didn't know we had the tests. We didn't know we had the equipment to test if our dog was deaf. But now you too might have the equipment at home if you have hands or anything loud.
Really, make a loud noise next to the ear. Dylan, what was your funniest from the weekend?
So my funniest was, for some reason, every single year the WWE likes to bring out iShow Speed for the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
Last year, I'm pretty sure he was also like tossed over the announcer's table. This year, I honestly thought he was not going to stand up after taking a spear from a former college football player, Braun Breaker. He actually played Division I football. And, yeah, if you've seen the CJ Fogler, he's at CJ0 on Twitter. I honestly thought he caved in his rib cage when he hit him. I mean, he actually lifts him up to then do and throw him over the announcer table again. They did like a relay even. So for some reason, iShow Speed is always dragged out to just be a doormat at the Royal Rumble.
Who is that? Is that a wrestler?
No, Speed, the guy that races everybody.
He did
the
a
YouTuber
on the
internet
Hand of God.
sensation that's really fast.
I know him. Okay.
He's raced a lot of different people. He's speedy. He's a fast individual.
Wait, is he the guy that races people at baseball games in the suit?
That's
Not
Flash.
him. Okay, that's Flash. Gotcha.
Flash, yes.
Yeah. Dude, when they
Who's
went
faster between Speed and Flash? Do we
I
know?
don't know. It's a great question. When the dude went off the ropes and hit him, I thought maybe he was concussed because it looked like his head separated from his body. He hit him so
He
hard.
can barely stand up after the fact, drags him up, and throws him over the announcer table.
His head slams against
Yes.
the. I know that thing has some give to it, but not that much give to
No,
where
not
when
a
your
lot.
head slams with that much force from a professional wrestler that drives through you with momentum of bouncing off the ropes twice.
Yeah.
One side off the ropes, spinning to the other side off the ropes, and then just crushing them. I mean, it was a great form tackle. It was a really good form tackle. Somebody's going to need to do that on Saquon Barkley.
Yes.
My funniest from the weekend, one of it, there's a video that was going around of a dad who is taking his son golfing, and his son is terrible at golfing. And his son's like 16, 17 years old, just awful at golfing. And his dad is probably 25 yards forward, so it's probably at the 7 o'clock to the son's noon, right? And he's like, and he's whispering into the camera. He's videoing. He's like, I got to hide behind the damn cart because my son is. He's like, we're on the third hole, and he's only made contact with 4 of them so far. This is awful, you know. And his son's getting up there, and he keeps adjusting, and I'm like, okay, so is this funny to where it's like the kid can't golf, but he's got one of those hitches to where he just can't like hit the ball and just keeps resetting, and he gets up there. And he hits it and just hits the dad right in the head.
The dad was behind him?
So behind the cart. The cart was like 25 yards down the course on the cart path. He was hiding. So the dad was like at the 7 or 8 o'clock to the kid's noon, right?
Yeah.
And it just whistling and curves right to him and goes right between the 2 bars of the cart to where you would sit there and hits the dad, and you just hear him go, "Mother, bleeper, God, bleep it, mother." He got nailed.
Golf's great.
He's hit like 4 of them. This is the third hole. He's only made contact with 4, but I got to hide behind the cart, just messing with him.
I'd maybe hide behind the cart behind my
Kid
son.
still hit him, man. Unbelievable. And then also, apparently there was a timed, a scheduled tweet from the Kansas City Chiefs that was sent out. And they're sending out all these different tweets from players that they're doing the video stuff, and they're doing like favorite stuff, everything, right? And so the Kansas City Chiefs this morning at 9 o'clock in the morning, or yesterday morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, so we know everything that took place the night before with Luka. and Patrick Mahomes tweeting out that, wait, what? And then tweeted out, I'm sick right now. And that was at 11:30. And the scheduled tweet the next morning was the Kansas City Chiefs interview with Patrick Mahomes going through his favorite things in life. And they ask him, Dylan, who's your favorite athlete right now?
Ooh, currently Luka Doncic.
You think he'll keep him as a favorite athlete now that he's with the Lakers, or will it be Anthony Davis?
So then he quote tweeted and said, y'all got to chill. And then the Chiefs account replied and said, we will not schedule any more tweets. No more scheduled tweets for us.
That's pretty good.
So that was pretty good. Who's your favorite athlete? Luka Doncic right now. Well, maybe not right now anymore. Best, we start with you, Dylan.
Best for me, you referenced it earlier, the dudes who brought a coffin to American Airlines Center and then played See You Again.
Yes.
I have the audio. I'll play it. The scream at the end. It's
walking up with a coffin, throwing roses on the coffin.
Listen to the scream.
He's on his knees, screaming.
Toss the rose on it.
Over the coffin. They're tossing roses as they walk by. But who's got a spare coffin just sitting around your house,
A
man?
baby blue one at that, too. They probably painted it, but yeah, spare coffin to bring to American Airlines Center.
With
well
that
done.
song playing in the background. My best was, it was pretty awesome. It was a real best. You know, we're down in New Orleans, and the Senior Bowl took place. Jack Besh, who is from Lafayette, Louisiana, and plays at TCU. His older brother, Tiger, played at Princeton, and Tiger was one of the victims in the Bourbon Street terrorist attack that took place. And Jack Besh, participating in the Senior Bowl, was one of the stars all week with how he performed. And his brother wore number 7, and so they had Jack Besh wear number 7 for his brother. The entire roster of the Senior Bowl wore a tiger-striped number 7 decal on their helmets. And, of course, the last play of the game, the American team scores a touchdown on the last play, and Jack Besh is the one that catches the game winner, and he's named the Senior Bowl MVP. And that was an easy best from the weekend, just that happening. And he did almost all of his interviews with his shirt off because he got 2 tattoos for his brother on his left pec, one right at his heart, one right at his collarbone. So he did almost every interview, just took his shirt off so they could see the tattoos about his brother. That's a month to the day. The Senior Bowl game for his brother being killed in that terrorist attack.
That led all the newscasts down here. We were here on Saturday night. Not just the sports,
Makes
but
sense.
the news.
The Lafayette, Louisiana family, and obviously
what happened here. We got there. My jaw hit the floor. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
He had the
This is his brother, because I knew the story.
Yeah.
I knew he was at the bowl game, and
you got a best, Mick?
I do. So I don't know how long ago this started. Ryan Gosling was pictured wearing a T-shirt with the life picture of Macaulay Culkin on it, and sometime later, Macaulay Culkin was pictured with a shirt on that had Ryan Gosling wearing that picture, and then Gosling returned sometime later, was pictured wearing a T-shirt with a picture of Macaulay Culkin wearing a T-shirt of him wearing a Macaulay Culkin T-shirt, and then one more degree here. Macaulay Culkin was recently captured wearing a T-shirt with a picture of Ryan Gosling wearing a T-shirt of Macaulay Culkin wearing a T-shirt of Ryan Gosling wearing a T-shirt of Macaulay Culkin.
I like it. It's got to keep
next,
going.
Ryan.
Yeah, you're up.
Next.
Ryan Gosling, you are next up. So there you go. Learn funniest best. God, that's great, man. It just keeps because of Babushka doll of T-shirts and pictures. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, wrap up our first show here from New Orleans Radio Row next. be originating from New Orleans and Radio Row, and all the different guests that we will have on over the next 4 days or so, and very excited about that as we get closer and closer in the build-up, the lead-up to Super Bowl 59, Chiefs and Eagles. And Mick Schaefer doing yeoman's work down here as well, Mick.
Yeah, I don't know what a yeoman is, but I'll do his work.
You've got your Sherpa, and you're doing yeoman's work. So
you appreciate it. He's my Sherpa, yeah.
That's exactly
Carry
right.
me up the mountain.
He's an artiste. I'm very excited of seeing this package of yours.
Thanks, and then we have that cool little video piece
and the video
we shot.
piece with the story that you're going to be doing as well. So that's pretty neat. That'll be on TV. So your package is going to be on the TV?
My package is going to be all over the TV.
Yeah. All
4,
right.
5, 6, 6:30. I'll have a package on at 10.
I saw it, and I laughed at it.